Hello everyone. Welcome to a new and amazing part of What If Deku Ran an Orphanage. This story is written by the amazing Kyodon. Please remember to support them. The link to the story is in the bio below. Remember to like, sub, and share the video around for more amazing stories. Now let's start this amazing story. Thank you all for coming today, Izuku said as he addressed his audience. Currently, Izuku was at the front of a police meeting room, speaking to a large group of pro-heroes. Shouldn't a member of the police be leading this meeting or a pro-hero? Kamui Woods asked. No. Anyway, let's move on to what we need to talk about. Izuku said, as all of you know, my facility was attacked, yet again. Unfortunately, this attack was far larger and far more successful than the previous ones. 2 Chaos Emeralds were stolen, and even worse, my daughter Kiba was kidnapped. And what exactly is a Chaos Emerald? Aizawa asked. They are gems containing immense power, enough to sink a quarter of Japan back into the ocean. Izuku explained, causing everyone to look at him with shock and horror. Just holding one can grant its user immense power. Thankfully, the human body can't fully utilize its power normally, but it's still exponentially more potent than Tigger and does not share its negative side effects. You just had something like that in your house. Death Arms balked. As I'm sure you've realized by now, these must be returned at all costs. Izuku continued. The same goes for my daughter. Unfortunately, we've only been able to locate one of the emeralds. Normally, we'd be able to locate both of them. However, it seems like one was taken out of the sea and thus out of the range of my trackers. We've also been unable to locate my daughter's energy signature, meaning she is likely being tampered with. What does that mean? MT Lady asked, out of both curiosity and concern. It means her body and mind are likely being altered in the same way those Nomu were altered, Izuku said, trying not to choke on his own rage. What? Fat Gum shouted out in rage. Fortunately, I have a way to restore her should be the case, Izuku said. But with that in mind, the last known location of Kiba was close to the Chaos Emerald we currently know the location of. This means that the emerald we're tracking is likely in the hands of the League of Villains. More specifically, their leader, their true leader, All For One. All Might's eyes widened. Are we really going to discuss him here? With all these other heroes? Now All For One's specific abilities are on a need-to-know basis, and according to the government, none of you need to know, Izuku explained. Wait, hang on a minute. You're sending us to fight a guy, and you're not telling us what he can do. Death Arms objected. Everything about All For One is heavily classified. I had to fight the government just to get the right to tell you about his existence. Izuku explained, trying to get permission to let me tell you more is simply not worth it when time is against us. And most of you won't be fighting him anyway. All For One is extremely dangerous, even without the emerald. With it, you'd all be slaughtered in an instant. The only person here that will be going up against him is All Might. The rest of you will be in charge of evacuation and rescue, as well as fighting any Nomus he might send out during the battle. Izuku pressed a button on the remote he was giving, and a hollow projector showed up, giving everyone a look at a map of the city with a large red ring around it. Everyone within this radius must be evacuated as quickly as possible. Only issue is, as soon as we start evacuating, All For One is sure to catch on, so the fight will start quickly after. That's quite a large radius. Does this All For One really have such destructive power? Mandalay asked. With a Chaos Emerald, absolutely, Izuku said. But he's not the main reason. The main reason we're evacuating this large of an area is for Plan B. Should All Might be unable to defeat him, then our only option will be to rely on the reset bomb. A bomb? What kind of bomb do you have that hits harder than All Might? Mariko asked. It's not a matter of power. The reset bomb's ability is an expansion of the quirk of my daughter Eri. Izuku explained. It will return an area to how it was, many years ago before human civilization even touched these lands. And anyone that's caught in the blast would simply cease to be, rewinded to before they even existed. All of their matter erased. Unless you have an ability that specifically counters the bomb's effect, you will not survive this, no matter how powerful you are. Oh, well, that's horrifying, Facum commented. Am I the only one worried about the absurdly dangerous things you're just keeping in your house there, Midoriya? I won't lie and say that it's not concerning. Izuku sighed. But scientific progress will always move forward. We just have to live with that. Anyways, further details will be sent to you all privately on how to help with the evacuation. For now, this meeting is over. All Might, I would like to talk to you privately at my house in a few hours. Endeavor, I actually need to talk to you immediately. I'll be meeting you at your home soon. What? For what reason? Endeavor asked. For reasons unrelated to any of this. It's a more private matter, Izuku said as he started leaving the room. Believe me, you don't want to talk about this here. Oh, and make sure your children are there too. It involves them. And without another word, he left. What on earth does he want? Endeavor wondered. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX the table, waiting for Izuku to arrive. They heard the door open and footsteps coming towards them. Is that Midoriya? How'd it get in without a key? Endeavor thought. His question was answered immediately when Natsuo walked in, with Izuku behind him. Natsuo? Endeavor looked at his eldest living son in shock. Midoriya had said that this involved his kids, but to have convinced Natsuo to come here for this had to be important. Believe me, I don't want to be here, but I don't have a choice, Natsuo said, looking at his father with the usual disgust. It's too important. What's going on? Fuyumi asked nervously. Izuku sat down next to Natsuo and took out a file from his bag. I think it would be best if you read this. Do note that these are official government files, and everything in them has been verified. The green-haired teen slid the file over to Endeavor, who opened it up to see what this was all about, only for his eyes to widen a second later, with a look of sheer disbelief taking over his face. No, that can't be. It's impossible. Dad, what is it? Fuyumi asked, but her father didn't respond. Instead, Endeavor started rapidly reading through the files. They could see his eyes move across the words on each page, looking at everything as closely as possible. And as he was reading, so engaged with the files was he, that some things started to fall out. Papers, and more importantly, photos. One of the photos fell onto the table, and Fuyumi and Shoto looked at it. A moment later, their expressions matched their father's. Tuya. Fuyumi gasped in disbelief as she looked down at the photo of Tuya in the Midoriya Foundation infirmary. Wait, I don't recognize this picture? When was this taken? Yesterday, Izuku answered. As it turns out, Tuya Todoroki is very much alive. That's impossible. Fuyumi shouted out, more confused and overwhelmed than she'd ever been in her life. And that said a lot. It's true, Natsuo said, causing everyone, including Endeavor, to turn their attention to him. I've seen him. Midoriya took me to meet him yesterday. It's him. How? Endeavor demanded. How is alive? Where did you find him? Why didn't he return home? Why is he still a child? I can only answer one of those questions, Izuku said. Tuya Todoroki somehow survived the incident that led everyone to believe he was dead, and later became the villain known as Dabi, changing his appearance to disguise himself, and going on to commit several crimes, including many murders. Everyone except Natsuo looked at him with shock and horror. Fuyumi covered her mouth with her hands, as tears started forming out of the corners of her mouth. Tuya, Kei killed people. He became a villain. No, that's impossible. Tuya wanted to be a hero. Why would he do that? I don't know, but it's what happened, Izuku said, giving her a bit of a sympathetic look. Dabi joined the League of Villains in their attack on my home, and more specifically my children, and ended up as a victim of my daughter Aries' quirk, Rewind, returning him to his younger state, and removing all memories he had up until the age he was rewinded to, which is how he ended up with us. Of course, we were shocked to see the long-thought dead eldest child of the Todorokis, but we varied it through DNA and memory scans. Tuya Todoroki survived and became the villain Dabi. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, unfortunately. That. Fuyumi was too shocked to say another word. She just sat there frozen, with tears rolling down her cheeks. Big brother. What? We can only guess as to his motivations, Izuku said. Dabi was a loner. He never got close to anyone, and killed half the people he met. So he was the only one who knew the full story. But now those memories are lost. Of course, we could rewind him back into Dabi, but that is not advisable. I know why he did it, Natsuo growled, as he glared daggers at his father. It was because of you. What? Endeavor whispered, looking rather lost. As soon as you found out he wasn't your perfect heir, You threw him away like garbage and replaced him. Natsuo shouted at his father as loud as he could, tears glimmering in his own eyes. The reason he didn't come back, it's because of you. I'd bet my life that he killed those people because of you too, just to get back at you. Endeavor was at a loss for words, as his now second oldest living son's words hit him like All Might's fist. You're the reason he went down the path of a villain. Netsuo yelled passionately. He killed those people to get back at you for abandoning him. They're dead because of you. Enough, Izuku shouted firmly, giving Netsuo a warning glare. Do you remember what talked about on the ride here? If you can't control your anger, then I might have to reevaluate my offer. Immediately Netsuo backed down, as fear and panic overtook his face. Wait, I'm sorry. I swear this doesn't happen often. It's just when I see his face. Offer, Shoto noted. What offer? Izuku sighed. This is where things got messy. Well, messy, eh? Well, now that we have a young and alive Tuya Todoroki on our hands, the first thing we need to figure out is custody. Because I've heard about everything you've done to your family from Netsuo, and I have no intention of letting you have custody of that child ever again. What? Endeavor stood up and looked at Izuku with shocked and outraged eyes. You can't do that. Fuyumi gasped. Actually, I can, Izuku said. Remember, Toyua Todoroki was a villain. Even if he's just a child now, there is a precedent for the child's fall into evil, and that means he qualifies as an OPC. Which DOC can take custody of him at any point should think it necessary to protect the public. And since DOC is basically under my full control, that means I can decide the matter of custody over Toyua. However, I please. That's absurd, Fuyumi shouted. Yes, but what's more absurd is that you seem to be all for returning a child to an abusive parent, Izuku said harshly, glaring at her and causing her to back away a bit in fear. Is the position a teacher should be taking? If you genuinely believe that returning Toyua to the same unhealthy environment that brought him down the path of villainy, then I think I need to have a conversation with your employees. Fuyumi's eyes widened in fear, and she immediately went quiet. Enough, Endeavor growled, regaining his composure, if only a little bit. Threaten me all you wish, but leave my children out of it. Izuku glared at him. Pretending to be a father now won't help you. What is that you want, Midoriya? Endeavor barked. You didn't have to tell me this. With the type of power and influence you wield, you didn't need to tell any of us Tuya was alive. And what you said with Netsuo. What do you want from me? Izuku sighed and shook his head. I have two issues. One, the public will eventually find out about this, and that will cause massive issues. I could either expose everything you've done to your family to explain myself and watch as trust in heroes dips massively and causes massive chaos. Or I could not explain anything, and everyone will be against me for taking the child of the number 2 hero against his will. And the second issue I have is that Tuya has no memories of you replacing him like a broken TV, so he wants to be with his family. And I have a strong feeling that if I try to keep him away from his family or tell him what happened, it'll only cause serious trouble. And since yet again, I'm not letting him come back here, there's only one option. Give custody to Netsuo. Endeavor and Fuyumi were shocked, while Shoto raised an eyebrow. Are you sure that's a good idea? Netsuo can barely take care of himself. Netsuo opened his mouth to combat that statement, but Izuku spoke first. I have every intention of giving him a larger house, fit for raising a child, and giving him a better job, Izuku explained, as well as some instruction on how to take care of a child. But first I need to give him custody. Right now, custody still lies with Endeavor. I can take it away and give it Netsuo by force, but again, the public will find that odd and start sticking their noses in things. So the best way for this to go is for you to sign away your custody and give to Netsuo. Izuku then pulled out a stack of papers and a pen and slid them over to Endeavor. Sign this. If you cooperate, you'll be allowed to at least see your son again, and it'll maintain your public image better than the alternative. If you refuse, then you'll suffer the consequences. I'm only giving you one way forward, and you can decide if you want to make that path easier or harder. Now, Chose, I have a lot of things I need to do today. Endeavor looked at the papers and slowly picked up the pen. It was all so much for him to process, and it all happened so fast that he couldn't even get his thoughts together. Fuyumi put her hand on his and gave him a kind look. Dad, I think you should sign this. At least we'll be able to see him again. I don't want us to be apart anymore. Endeavor looked at his daughter before looking back at the papers. It's not like I have a choice. And so he signed. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX pause, ready to start the conversation. You look tired. All Might noted. I am tired, Izuku confirmed. I'm the most tired I've ever been. And yet I can't sleep at all, but enough about that. We have a lot to talk about. Firstly, I need you to get rewound by Eri. All Might gave a hesitant, but understanding look. Will I really not be able to stand a chance without doing that? You couldn't manage to kill him back when you were at full strength, and he didn't have a Chaos Emerald. Izuku pointed out. In this state, you won't even be able to hold him off. We need you back at full power if you want to stand a chance. I see. But what if it really does get rid of one for all? All Might asked. What then? Then I will have no choice but to unleash Zero. Izuku said with a resigned look. All Might almost choked out some blood. Zero? Are you sure? We won't have any other options. The Gammas could hold off All for One, but if he's using the Chaos Emerald, then it's no good. Izuku explained. And Achiko's body isn't ready to fight against someone like All for One, especially not an empowered version. At that rate, we might as well just give him one for all. Zero will be our only real option. But hopefully, all goes well, and we won't have to resort to that. Izuku, why don't I use one of those Chaos Emeralds? All Might asked. Izuku shook his head. One for all is pushing your body to the limit already. If it gets enhanced by a Chaos Emerald, at best it doesn't do much, and at worst you explode. At least that's what Might tells me. Damn it, All Might swore. And I suppose the same goes for young Uraraka. Basically, Izuku nodded. As I said, you and Zero are our only options. Well, that's not reassuring. All Might said as he looked down at his hands and sighed. All this wouldn't have happened if I just finished him all those years ago. If it wasn't for me, you and your children would have never had to suffer so much. I'm sorry, young Midoriya. We can't change the past, for the most part, Izuku said. All we can do is try to make sure we don't repeat our missteps. Right? This time the bastard dies. All Might swore. Speaking of him, I have some more news to give you, Izuku said. You remember All for One's puppet? Tamura Shigaraki. Yes, I recall he destroyed me quite a bit. All Might said. Well, he fell victim to Eri's quirk and was reverted back to a child, Izuku explained, allowing us to figure out his true identity. And his identity is Tenko Shimura, Nana Shimura's grandson. And then the room went completely quiet for just a moment. Crack. All Might's teacup fell to the ground, and the tea that had been it splat all over the floor. Blood soon fell and mixed in the tea, as the shock of what had been said caused All Might to start bleeding from the mouth. That, what? Tenko Shimura went missing quite some time ago. He disappeared at the same time his family was found dead. Izuku explained. Notably, pieces of both his family and his home were found in massive piles of dust. Dust? But that means that. All Might trail off, not wanting to finish that sentence. That he killed his own family. Hopefully by accident. Izuku said. Some people reported seeing the child walk around the streets around that time. But after that, nothing. That's likely when All for One got his hands on him. I'm guessing he chose to raise the child as a minion, as a way to get back at you and Nana Shimura. All Might had to take that in for a second before his face twisted in absolute rage. All for One, how much must you destroy before you're satisfied? How many lives must you ruin? I'll swear on my master's soul, I'll kill you this time. With my own 2 hands. That would be great, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, Izuku said. At the very least, we've undone most of the damage. Although I can't say things are going to be easy with him. Not only do I have to tell him that his family is dead, I also have to take away his quirk before it comes in. I had my do some tests on him, and apparently, somehow Tenko's quirk was weakened, and it's actually far stronger than we've seen. Not only can it decay things far faster, but anything that touches something that's decaying will also decay. A quirk like that is enough to be labeled a level 2 OPC, and thus cause for quirk removal. I understand. All Might said as he hung his head. What a cruel twist of fate. Master sent away her child to keep him safe from All for One, and yet died at the hands of his own son before he then would go on to serve All for One. And now he's condemned to quirklessness, just like I was. It's like some sick poem. I also have to take care of the girl. Toga Himiko. Or just Himiko now. Izuku's face scrunched up in disgust. I visited her parents, and not only were they just awful, they made it very clear they didn't want their daughter back. With parents like those, it's little wonder she ended up the way she did. It's heartbreaking how many terrible parents there are. All Might sighed as he got up to clean the tea and blood he'd spilled everywhere. Tell me about, Izuku said, as he looked down at his tea and saw his own reflection. Tell me about it. Monster. Demon child. Why? Why couldn't you be normal? You disgust me. How could we ever love something as loathsome as you? Himiko. Ah. Himiko woke up with a start lurching upwards in her bed, pale and sweating. Whoa. Whoa. Hold on there, tiny girl. You are okay. You are safe, Vera said, quicking coming to assure her. Himiko looked at Vera with a mixture of caution and confusion. Who are you? And where am I? Quickly her nightmare was forgotten, as she realized she was not in her room, but somewhere completely unfamiliar, that being the Midoriya Foundation Infirmary. She was located in one of the beds, in the middle of two other sleeping children, those being Tenko and Tuya, who appeared to have been roused by Toga's screaming. Ugh. Fuyumi, if you don't shut up, dash. Tuya woke up groggily and looked around, before quickly realizing he didn't know where he was. He quickly jumped up and aimed his palm at Vera. Where am I? Who are you? Did you kidnap me? Oh, my dad's gonna kick your ass when he finds out. What's going on? Tenko said, holding his blanket up over his mouth as if trying to hide. Calm down, little ones. You were not kidnapped, Vera assured them. How do I explain this? Some terrible things happened, and some of your memories are gone. You were involved in a villain attack and rescued by children of Midoriya Foundation. That didn't clarify much to the kids, who all still looked at Vera with great confusion. Vera sighed. I'm not good at explaining this. I have to wait for Mr. Midoriya. You don't need to wait. I got your message, Izuku said as he walked into the room and laid eyes on all the kids at once. I see you're all awake. Well, at least I won't have to explain this multiple times. Who are you and why are we here? Tuya asked sharply. You are in my house. Specifically, you're in the infirmary. Izuku answered. As for why you're here, all of you were affected by a time manipulation quirk, and your current selves were sent into the future many years after the time you remember. We got sent to the future, Tenko asked with a starstruck look. Cool. So, if we're not being kidnapped, does that mean we can go home? Tuya asked, still giving Izuku a suspicion-filled look. Izuku winced. Not quite. You see, things have changed in the years you've been gone. Todoroki, you can leave, but you can't go home. Why not? Tuya asked pointedly, and Izuku was sure he was 2 seconds away from activating his quirk. Well, your father has been rather busy, so he's asked Natsuo to take care of you for the time being, Izuku explained. Tuya gave him a confused look. But he's Natsu's younger than me? Yeah, but you're in the future now, so he's probably way older, Tenko pointed out. That's correct. Natsuo is a young man living on his own, and is more than capable of making sure you're okay, Izuku assured him. In fact, he's very happy to know you're alive. Your entire family is. After you all disappeared, everyone assumed you were dead, so they're so happy to know you're alive that they burst into tears. PFT, of course they did. Cry babies. Tuya mocked. And Himiko. Izuku shot her a sympathetic look. You can't go home, period. Your parents disowned you. Disowned? Himiko asked with a frown. She had a creeping feeling she knew what that word meant, but she wanted to confirm her suspicions. It means you are no longer a part of their family, Izuku explained sadly. You won't be able to use the Toga family name, and you won't be living with them anymore. Oh, was all Himiko could say, as her face fell into a saddened, yet resigned expression. The worst part was, that honestly didn't surprise her. Well, their loss, I guess, Tuya said, trying to lift her spirits. Only so he didn't feel so awkward. Look on the bright side. Yeah, I got nothing that sucks. Izuku put his hand on her shoulder, causing her to look up at him. I'm sorry, but at least now you won't have to deal with those two. I've taken the liberty of adopting you, so you'll be living here with me. Himiko's eyes widened. Oh, really? What? Izuku smiled. Because you seemed like you needed help. So you really going to help me, just because I need it? Himiko just didn't understand what he was saying. Do you know about my quirk? Izuku nodded. Yup, and it doesn't make me think any worse of you for it. You don't need to be afraid to be yourself. Just don't hurt anyone. Himiko was looking up at him with starry eyes, in a way that reminded him of how he used to look at All Might. He patted her on the head before moving on to Tenko. And immediately all the positive energy from that last exchange faded, but he tried not to let it show on his face. But Tenko could tell that whatever Izuku had to say to him wasn't good, from the way his smile immediately turned into a frown and fear seized him. Tenko, your family died in an accident soon after you disappeared, Izuku told him solemnly. I'm sorry. Oh, was all Tenko could say to that. He was sure he should have felt angry or sad or anything. But hearing that, and having to process what that meant and how he felt about it, was so overwhelming that he just felt numb. That's rough, buddy. Tuya winced, not really sure what to say after a bombshell like that. I think I'm just gonna go find something to eat. You hungry? You look hungry. I'll get you some food. And with that, Tuya jumped off the bed and ran as fast as he could away from that depressing conversation. From now on, you'll be living with me just like Himiko, Izuku explained to him. Tenko said, still very out of it. That means we're gonna live together. Himiko said to Tenko excitedly. We should be friends. Tenko didn't respond. Izuku put his hand on Himiko's shoulder. He's going through a lot right now. Let's just give him some space. Let's go show you two to your rooms, and then you can meet all your other new friends. Okay, Himiko said, turning to Tenko one last time. I hope you feel better, Tenko. Then she hopped off the bed, and Izuku picked up Tenko with one arm, before holding Toga's hand and guiding them out of the infirmary. Damn, this place is big, Tuya said as he wandered the halls of the Midoriya house. What kind of money does that guy have? Are you lost? Tuya turned around and saw Kei standing there smiling as usual. Hi there. I'm Kei Midoriya. Kei said, introducing herself. Nice to meet ya. Hi. Yeah, I guess I'm lost. Tuya admitted. Do you know where the kitchen is? Of course. Just follow me, Kei said as she started leading the way. We'll be there in a hot minute. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. They quickly arrived at the kitchen and found Fuku cooking up a lot of food. Hi, Fuku, Kei greeted. Fuku jumped, stumbling a bit to not fall off the step stool she was using to reach the stove. Kei, I told you not to do that and wait. Who is that behind you? Is that another villain? Please don't take away any more of my sisters. Please, who are you calling a villain? Tuya shouted, glaring daggers at Fuku. EAP. I'm sorry, I just got really scared. Please don't kill me. Fuku panicked as she started looking for a place to run. Sorry about that. Fuku's super scared of strangers, and so she says weird stuff like that out of fear, Kei explained. But she's super nice, and her cooking is super yummy. Here, try some. Kei reached up and grabbed a bowl of soup before handing it over to Tuya. Tuya grabbed the warm bowl and looked at it skeptically before taking a spoon and taking some of it into his mouth. And immediately his mouth widened. This is good. All right, I'll take this and forgive you for calling me a villain. Just never do it again, got that? Fuku gave a sigh of relief. Once again, I'm saved by my cooking. I'm so glad I spent time learning that. As Tuya continued eating his soup, he noticed the tables covered in plates of food. That's a lot of food. How many people live here? A lot, Kei said. All my brothers and all my sisters, and my friends, and the workers, and Daddy. If there's that many, then why didn't I see anyone on the way here? Tuya asked, before slurping up the broth. Fuku slumped, and her expression changed from a fearful frown to a depressed frown. They're all either in the training room or outside, or in their rooms. Things haven't been the same since Kiba got kidnapped. Did you say training room? Tuya immediately started paying more attention. Where? I can show you. Kei volunteered. Follow me. Bye, Fuku. I'll see you in a little bit. XXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Hi, Giza, Kei greeted as they walked into the training room and saw the man rat standing there. How's the training? Not well for the most part, Giza said, as he turned back to the kids in the training room. The triplets were currently doing what they would call training for team coordination. But what it actually looked like was a bunch of wild dogs tearing apart a most destroyed punching bag, and every now and then breathing fire on it. Shiruku was panting and laying down at the bottom of the treadmill, and Knees was lifting weights with her vectors. Everyone is a bit too riled up to really focus on any of my advice. Giza sighed. Ken, Nara, and Sheena are outside running. And Sanson, Mu, and AKA are doing stealth training outside with Sori. What about Fu, Yami, Netsu, and Lo? Kei asked. Netsu is doing flight training. He's aside, against the advice of pretty much everyone. As for the other three, they went to the lab for some special training. So can I train here? Tuya asked as he made some fire in his hands. You are the Todoroki child, correct? Giza asked. Very well, your brother will be here soon. Until then, we have some fire-resistant dummies. I wonder if you can damage them. Tuya smirked. Oh, I'll do more than that. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX and it was time for Tuya to go. Izuku walked Tuya outside, where his brother was waiting outside his car. The moment the brothers saw each other, their eyes widened. "Holy shit, little bro. You really did get bigger," Tuya shouted out in surprise. "Tuya." Netsuo's eyes became wet as tears started emerging. In a flash, Netsuo ran at his brother and engulfed him in a massive hug. "Wah? Hey, not so tight," Tuya complained as he tried to struggle out of the embrace, to no avail. "I'll hug you as tight as I want," Netsuo sobbed as he hugged his brother. "It's been so long." "Okay, well, for me it was a couple hours, so stop getting all emotional about it." "It's gross," Tuya complained. Izuku smiled at the reunion happening before his eyes. It was a small silver lining, one he desperately needed. "Chaos Spear," Lu shouted out, as he unleashed 5 chaos spears at a target on a wall. Boom, 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 boom. Lu was currently in the lab, training inside a test chamber with some stuff on his body that the scientists overseeing him were using to collect data. Growling, Lu growled as he stared at the singed but mostly unharmed target on the reinforced metal wall. More. Lu charged more chaos spears in between his hands and launched them at the target. Boom, 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 boom. Recharge speed reduced by 20%. Power increased by 15%. One of the scientists reported to Mai, who was overseeing everything. "Stress on the body has increased by 5%. Interesting," Mai said as he looked over at Lo. "Maybe the frustration and anger is helping him hone his powers more. If we could get that same focus while at the same time being calm, maybe we could get him to optimize his chaos energy usage." "Chaos Javelin," Lu shouted as he quickly charged 2 red energy attacks in his hands before launching them at the wall. Kaboom! Kaboom! The 2 attacks hit the wall hard, causing the room to shake and making very small cracks. Recharge time reduced by 50%. Strain on body increased by 20%. One of the scientists reported. "Chaos Javelin," Lu shouted as he put even more into the attack and launched it at the wall, making even bigger cracks appear. And Li's inhibitor rings started to glow. Power increased by 20%. Strain on body increased by an additional 15%. One of the scientists said, "Inhibitor rings starting to overheat." "Lu, slow it down. You're starting to go overboard," Mai said into the mic, speaking to Lu over the speakers in the chamber. TCH. Lu was tempted to just ignore her, but he knew he'd worry Maria if he went much further. "Damn it. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX said in an analysis chamber. All right, everything's stable. You should dash. Can you turn me into a cyborg? Liz suddenly asked. Mai's eyes went wide, very much off-put by the sudden question. Excuse me. My body is too damn weak, Liz said, looking down at himself with disdain. So if we turn me into a cyborg, then maybe I could use my powers better. If I could have just kept going a little bit more after using Chaos Missile, then I could have beaten up that Frost guy and gotten Kiba back. But because I was too weak, Kiba's gone, and Midoriya running around looking he's about to kill someone. My side. We have looked into doing cybernetic augmentations. However, our experiments, while successful, have only been done on small animals, such as rats. We've never tried doing anything like that on a human, and we don't know what might happen. And with you, it gets even more complicated. Remember, your body reacts to chaos energy the same way everyone else does. And your quirk is so unique, and quite frankly, unpredictable, that messing with it to any significant degree could have drastic consequences. Like your death. TCH. Lou spat, a look of frustration overtaking his face. Can't we do anything about this? The only thing you can do is practice, I told him. Right now, your use of chaos energy is not exactly practical, leading to a lot of wasted energy, leading to you getting exhausted much faster. It may be slow, but it's safe. And safety is our #1 priority. Got it. Li didn't look satisfied by that answer at all, but he also knew he had no choice but to accept it. Got it. Knock, knock, knock. Come in, I said, turning her attention to the door. A scientist walked in. Ma'am, there's been a sudden development with the shadow fractals. We'd like you to take a look. Got it, I said, before turning back to Lo. Sorry, but I have to go see this. I get it. It's always busy around here, Lu said, before teleporting away back to his room. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX mini Grimm he created, it seemed all they could do in the face of sheer overwhelming power was stall for time. Even with the negative energy magnet, he was still limited in what he could make. But no more. Now, not only had the battle filled him with a massive amount of negative energy, but there would also be another battle happening soon. That was sure to give him even more. Plus, he didn't have to create anything like Monstra again, so he got to focus all of it on this project. But that alone wasn't what gave him confidence in this newest Grimm, because he had some materials that would help him make the best Grimm that he could. "All right, kid, here it is," Dr. Hatta said, handing Yami a small jar. In that jar was a smaller version of a chaos engine, a chaotic heart. "Thank you," Yami said, giving them a bow of appreciation. Right now, he didn't have enough power to create a proper vessel for this, but he knew that would change soon. Soon he would have Grimm who could stand up against the mightiest of foes. He just had to wait a little bit longer. Meanwhile, in the botanist laboratory was Fu, standing out in one of the testing yards. Uchi was there with him, giving him a rather concerned look. "Are you sure about this?" "It'll be fine. I said it wouldn't kill me. And what doesn't kill me, I can come back from." Fu said, "Kyosei wants this too, so I can't just back out now. And the Gammas are watching, so we don't need to worry if I go on a rampage." Uchi sighed and shook her head. "Oh, who am I kidding? After what happened with Kiba, I know there's no convincing you otherwise. Just never mind. Here." Uchi then handed him a vial, filled with red liquid. This was known as might concentrate. Most of the fruit from the tree of might was made up of water. So, naturally, Uchi and her people juiced and distilled the fruit, creating pure might. This was even more potent than the might fruit, although its effects were even more dangerous. After what happened, Fu went looking for a way to increase his power, and the might fruit came up. Due to Fu's quirk, he figured out he could use the fruit almost as much as he pleased, enhancing the power of both himself and Kyosei. Only issue was that it tore up his body even faster than normal, but so long as he had a full meal after whatever fight he was in, that wouldn't be a problem. So naturally, the next question was, could he handle pure might? The answer was also yes. And so the next step in Fu's mind was to kick it up a notch. Or several. Might concentrate, made by concentrating several glasses of pure might into one vial. If any normal person ingested this, they would die, almost immediately. After checking with Mai that this wouldn't affect Fu's chaos energy like the fractals might, she gave the thumbs up on allowing it to be tested. Under heavy supervision, of course. After giving Fu the vial, Uchi ran away, heading back to the relative safety of the lab. Fu looked at the vial and undid the cork. "You ready, partner?" "Yes," Kyosei said in his head. "All right." Fu lifted the vial up to his lips and drank it. A second later, everything went black. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX was inside of a metal room that was absolutely covered in blood. I'm guessing things didn't go well, Fu said to himself as he got to his feet. Hey Fu, said Dr. Hada's voice through a speaker. Looks like you're finally back to normal. What happened? Fu asked immediately. Well, the might concentrate sent you into a hunger-fueled rampage, and you and Kyosei turned into a giant flesh monster that tried to eat everyone, Hada explained. So we trapped you in here thanks to the gammas and kept feeding you animals until you went back to normal. So, maybe stick to the regular pure might. Or just the fruit. Well, that sucks. Fu sighed. If only I could use the fractals. If only. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX I must say, losing Tamura was rather disappointing. Dr. Garaki said as he got ready for an operation. All for One was laid down on an operation table. His body was filled with tubes, wires, and other things. Next to him was a table with various tools on it. And next to that was a separate table with the Chaos Emerald that was acquired from Cooler on it. Lastly, there was a vial filled with something else Cooler had stolen from the Midoriya Foundation. A fluidized fractal filled with Ares power. Yes, it is indeed a grievous loss. All for One side. Hearing that the descendant of Nana Shimura, All Might's precious master, was compatible with my quirk and was easily moldable, filled my dead heart with joy. And all that time I spent on him. What a shame. Still, the results were far more positive than negative, don't you agree? Oh, absolutely, Garaki said. As he put on his gloves, the Chaos Emerald is worth at least 5 Tamuras. Hell, I'm kidding myself. Its value can't be compared to him. And thanks to our other treasures, we can make full use of it. Garaki went over to a machine and put his hand on the button. Now then, shall we begin the operation? Yes, I'd like to have this done as soon as possible. All for One said. Very well. Good night, my master, and when you wake up. Garaki pressed the button. You will be a god. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX They were no longer in the shape of long crystals. Rather, they were now perfect spheres, containing varying numbers of yellow lights inside them. From 1 to 7. They looked kind of like stars. We only just noticed the transformation. One of the scientists said, looking a little ashamed. It happened rather quickly, you see. Well, we already knew they were absorbing negative energy, but for them to rapidly transform. I took a closer look. That's not all that changed. One of the scientists said, the crystals have become harder, more durable, and they've gained certain unique properties to them. The 2-star ball seems to releasing some sort of toxic gas and makes the area around it hazardous. The 3-star ball freezes anything it touches, while the 4-star ball does the opposite, burning anyone it comes into contact with. The Give-star ball has been seen giving off electricity, while the 6-star ball has started blowing wind and turning the air around it into water. Lastly, the 7-star ball absorbs organic matter. Another scientist explained, what about the 1-star ball? I asked. That one has absorbed the most negative energy out of all of them, but it has yet to display any quirk-like abilities aside from that. A scientist explained. Interesting, I said before sighing. Well, we don't have time to worry about these now. Keep them under surveillance, but move on to other projects. Let's just hope this doesn't blow up in our faces. This is Myru Jikin, reporting on Project Deicide. Project Deicide. With the rise of extremely powerful individuals, concerns have arisen that the powerful few will one day use their power to rule over or destroy the weaker masses. It is these concerns that Project Deicide wishes to address. The goal of Project Deicide is to create weapons capable of neutralizing the most powerful individuals alive, by any means necessary. EA, the Everything Annihilator, or EA, is a device Mr. Midoriya conceptualized himself. The idea behind it is essential to make use of teleportation technology to tear apart targets like Blender tears apart fruit. But even more so, the blast it shoots will be an unstable portal that will transport its target to a different location, possibly a different dimension. However, due to the portal being unstable, instead of bringing a target completely to one destination, the portal will change its destination rapidly, meaning that parts of the target will be teleported and scattered across the multiverse, atom by atom. Not only that, but since EA would be transporting everything, it'll also be displacing all the air around it, causing a kind of vortex to form, which would suck anything around it into the blast. This would be, without a doubt, one of the most powerful and dangerous weapons in history, but there is one issue. We've made little progress in actually making it. So far, the only real progress we've made is actually creating the unstable portal that this whole idea relies on. And while we were able to make it, we couldn't create it into a blast or stabilize it. So it's a long way to go until EA is even close to completion. Although even if it is made, I hope it never has to be used. Reset bomb. The reset bomb is a very simple idea. Take Eri Midoriya's rewind quirk and make a bomb out of it. So we did. You see, while we were making the chaos engine, There was a rejected design that was bigger and had an issue with exploding if a significant amount of force was applied. So naturally, this was used as the base of the bomb. We added about 6 of the rewind quark fractals and bound them to the core of the bomb, and done. The bomb's blast radius and destructive power are not particularly impressive. The impressive part comes in when any organic matter is caught in the blast. Any living thing that is caught in the blast of this bomb will be instantly rewinded back into nothing. They die. They instantly die. No organic matter can survive being hit by this blast, regardless of any level of power they may have. Unless, that is, they have a quirk that directly counters the effects of the bomb, such as the fractal we have, which will protect the user from the direct effects of chaos energy-related attacks. Still, while this weapon is powerful, it's rather impractical. While its blast radius is nothing special when compared to other high-powered bombs, it's still very considerable, and thus it's very dangerous to use in populated areas. Dagger of Destiny. The so-called Dagger of Destiny is a very simple weapon, probably the most simple weapon to be made under Project Deicide. The Dagger of Destiny is a dagger made from a fractal. This fractal's abilities allow it to ignore any possible defensive abilities a quirk may give you. No matter how damage-resistant you are, or how your quirk might keep you from being harmed, none of that matters in the face of this dagger. If someone stabs you with it, you're going to take damage. It also nullifies regenerative properties, regenerative properties that quirks are responsible for. It's a knife that renders the most powerful of people as vulnerable as a regular person on the streets, if you can stab them with it. Yeah, that's kind of the big issue with this weapon. You have to actually stab them with it, and since its intended purpose is to be used on the most powerful people on Earth, that won't be easy. Unless you have a quirk that makes it easy. Not only that, but it's not hard to destroy. Sure, it won't snap off when you try to stab someone, but a reasonably powerful attack will shatter it instantly. But if you have the chance to maybe use it as a sneak attack, it'll prove effective, probably. Destabilization formula. All quirks have a certain stability. Stable quirks are quirks that typically have little drawback. Mutant quirks, for example. Other quirks, typically emitter quirks, are less stable. Eri Midoriya's quirk is a good example, as the quirk's stability membrane is so thin that she has issues controlling it. An insufficient stability membrane can also lead to your quirk hurting you. Endeavor is an example of this, but it's normally difficult and rare for a quirk to completely overwhelm the stability membrane and cripple/kill the user. But what if we change that? During our studies attempting to infuse life forms with chaos energy, we found that if not careful, the chaos energy will only boost a quirk's power and not its stability, causing the user to suffer an extreme overload, most cases of which end in death. Note, while chaos emeralds usually increase a quirk's stability, there are instances where a quirk's unusual properties lead to the emerald making the quirk completely unstable. So what if we weaponize this? And thus, the destabilization formula was made. This liquid, when injected, will increase the power of a quirk without increasing its stability. Now this has various effects, depending on the victim. On a quirkless person, it's useless. On a person with a weak quirk, it'll increase their power, making it just a little harder to control. On a person with a quirk of average power, it'll do the same thing. On a person with a somewhat impressive quirk, it'll increase power while also heavily increasing the drawback. On a person with a very strong quirk, it'll have very damaging effects, possibly killing or crippling the victim. And on a person with an overwhelming powerful quirk, death is a certainty. Currently, the only way to use this is by injecting a target, limiting its viability. Ways to turn this into a gas or something similar are currently being explored with little success. The attack on All for One would be happening tomorrow. It was a bit fast, but Izuku just wanted all of this done and over with, so he made sure to spare no resources when it came to getting this in order as quickly as possible. But that didn't mean he didn't want this done right. Sure, he wanted this over with, but not to the point where he was willing to rush the process to the breaking point. This was an operation of the utmost importance. If anything went wrong, it could end in absolute catastrophe. So before everything started, he needed to check over the entire operation and make sure everything was in place. And so here he was at the lab, making sure their attack force was ready. In front of him was All Might, the Gammas, Hawks, Sori, Protoman, and Sai. All Might had been restored, and now looked the way he did in his prime. Although he still was using the dregs of One for All, as Eri had been unable to restore it due to its massive power. But at least he didn't have to worry about his body failing him. All right, so is everyone aware of the plan? Izuku asked them. All Might will engage All for One. Gamma too, and I will support him from a respectable distance. And Sai will assist from long range. Gamma 1 explained, while Hawks lead the other heroes in evacuation. Meanwhile, Sori and Protoman will rescue Kiba once we locate her. That is correct, Izuku said, as Sue came up behind him with a suitcase in her hands. And to aid you in this task, I have decided to give you these. Sue opened the case, revealing 2 Chaos Emeralds. Hawks, Sai, you'll be using these during the attack, Izuku said, as Sue walked forward and gave the emeralds to the 2 of them. Hawks picked up the emerald, and immediately he could feel its power coursing through his body and his wings. Man, this is certainly something. Are you sure about giving this to me, sir? Sai said, looking at the emerald. I failed you during the last attack after all. No, I failed you, Izuku said while shaking his head. I should have given you more forces to work with. It was basically just you and a bunch of children, powerful children, but still children, versus some of the strongest villains out there. And even then, you just barely didn't finish the job perfectly. I have faith you'll pull through here. And besides, your quirk is the best suited for this task anyway. Izuku sighed. Of course, if you fail, I'll have no choice but to release Zero. That monster is finished. Hawks asked. Pretty much, Izuku confirmed. He's being kept in a kind of dream state and can be activated at any time. I do hope you know the consequences of him being released. Yeah, catastrophic power. Could destroy a small country in a day. Nearly unstoppable. Gamma 2 said nonchalantly as he leaned on Gamma 1. We get it, boss. But you don't have to worry. A villain like All for One could never hope to overcome us superheroes. And we have 2 emeralds, while he only has 1. True, but if you think about it, we can only enhance 2 people, while All for One can essentially enhance a whole army with all the quirks he stole. Izuku pointed out. Not to mention, we don't know what other tricks he might have under his sleeve. So be careful, and don't do anything stupid. We just need you to stall for time, while we evacuate the area and drop the reset bomb. Speaking of which, Izuku walked up to All Might and handed him Fractal. This Fractal will keep you safe from the bomb's effect. Make sure it doesn't break, otherwise, we'll have to rely on the Gammas to hold off All for One. Since their status as androids, keep them safe from the bomb. Understood, young Midoriya. I will keep that in mind, All Might said as he stored the Fractal. All right, meeting dismissed, Izuku said, as he went to continue checking up on the rest of the operation. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. So this is the reset bomb, Izuku said, as he finally laid his eyes on the device from an observation chamber. The bomb itself looked more like a giant mutated seed, with multicolored vines growing all around it. Apparently, the outside was just an added shell to keep it from exploding at the slightest touch. The bomb is fully operational and will be ready for tomorrow's operation, Uchi reported. We also have 2 backups, just in case. Perfect, Izuku nodded. Continue with your work. And keep a close eye on these. Can never be too careful. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Izuku looked at the 3 ships in front of him. They were rather small up front. Only made for 1 driver, with larger back halves, capable of carrying large bombs. All the bomber ships have been tested and are fully operational, Mai said. They're all ready for tomorrow. Izuku nodded. Good. And you're sure you want to be the one piloting them? That's a lot of pressure. Mai nodded. Yes, sir. I want to make sure everything goes the way I want it to. And you know what they say. If you want something done right, do it yourself. I get that. Izuku said. Well, just make sure to get some practice in. And get plenty of rest before the operation. Understood. Yes, sir, Mai said. Good. Izuku nodded. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX shelters. Due to the danger of the situation, simply getting everyone to a safe distance wouldn't be enough. If something went wrong, or a calculation on the bombs went off, everyone they tried to save would die. So shelters had to be made. These shelters appeared to be simply abandoned buildings at first, just brick walls with a large metal door on the outside. This was necessary to avoid suspicion. Izuku pulled up to one of these buildings in his limo, and the metal doors opened. The inside still didn't seem all that impressive. The walls were made of metal, and all that was there was a ramp heading underground. They drove down the ramp and headed deep underground. After a few minutes, they arrived at the end of the ramp and into a large underground area that was capable of housing tens of thousands of people. There were beds, supplies, food, and other things just in case, for some reason, they had to stay down here for a while. They kept driving through the area until they reached the opposite side. There was yet another door. This one was much thicker and guarded by 2 soldiers. "Halt. Identify yourself," one of them said, walking up to the car. Izuku opened his window, showed them his face, and then gave them a card. They took the card and looked it over for a while before giving it back to him. "Sorry for the wait, Mr. Midoriya." No. I'm glad you're doing your job properly," Izuku said, taking back his card and closing his window. The doors opened, and Izuku was driven inside. Behind these doors was the anti-warp generator, being guarded by soldiers and pro-heroes alike, and worked on by engineers and scientists. The car stopped and Izuku exited the vehicle, looking up at the building-sized devices, as the head scientist in charge here ran up to him. "Sir, everything is fully operational and ready for use," the man said. "And the other generators?" Izuku asked. They had set up multiple generators in multiple locations, just in case any of them were damaged or destroyed. "All fully operational," the scientist said. "Everything is ready on our end." "And the towers?" Izuku asked. "Ready to use, sir," the scientist said. "Good work." Izuku nodded, giving a sigh of relief. It was finally time to head back home, although he still had one thing he needed to check on when he got there. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Izuku arrived back at his office and found Giza there waiting for him. "I trust everything is in order?" Izuku asked, as he sat down on the couch and relaxed. "I did a proper inspection of all the participants of this mission," Giza confirmed. "And I found 13 traitors. Most of them belonged to the MLA, but some attempted to leak information to All for One. All of them were dealt with." "Excellent," Izuku said, having Sue serve him some tea. "Everything is in place, and things should move smoothly. Assuming there are no unmanageable surprises on All for One's part. You've prepared about as well as you can. Rest, lest exhaustion be your downfall," Giza advised. "Right," Izuku sighed. "Although it's hard for me to fall asleep, knowing that Kiba is still in the hands of that monster." "About that," Giza said, stroking his beard. "Ms. Uraraka came to visit you, and has been waiting for your return for quite some time now." "What? Tell her I'm here then," Izuku told them. "I don't want to keep her wide dash." Suddenly, Achiko opened the door and burst in. "Izuku, oh Achiko, I'm sorry I kept you waiting for so long," Izuku said, giving her a forced and tired smile. Achiko frowned and looked at Sue and Giza. "Could you two give us some time alone?" Giza nodded, and Sue looked to Izuku, who nodded, giving her permission to leave. Once they left, Achiko took a seat right next to Izuku and gave him a concerned look. "You don't have to put on that fake smile. Your eyes tell me everything I need to know." Izuku wanted to just dismiss that and tell her he was fine. But for whatever reason, maybe it was because he knew it was pointless, maybe it was because of the trust he had in Achiko, maybe it was because he was just that tired. But he instantly deflated on the couch, and a look of grief overtook his face. "They took her Achiko," Izuku muttered. "They took my daughter. My Kiba. They took her Achiko." Tears started coming out of the corners of his eyes. "I was supposed to protect her, and now she's in the hands of those bastards." Izuku sobbed, doing who knows what to her. Achiko quickly brought him into a hug and started rubbing circles on his back. "I should have added more bodyguards. I should have given them better weapons. A Chaos Emerald. Anything." Izuku cried into her shoulder. "I failed her." "Izuku, look at me," Achiko said, moving Izuku up so he could look her in the eyes. "You spent countless hours preparing for that fight. Spent more money than some countries spend in a year to try and keep them safe. Used some of the most powerful and advanced technology in the world, and hired some of the most powerful and talented people in the country. All of this so you could defend what is essentially an orphanage. And it still wasn't enough somehow. That is insane. There is no reasonable person who could blame you for what happened, because what happened was insane. No one could have predicted all the stuff they would throw at you for no good reason. If you knew what would have happened, I'm sure things would have turned out differently. And now that things have gotten like this, I'm sure you get her back. Without fail. Izuku didn't know what to say to that. He still wished he'd added at least one more guard on Monsta, but at the same time, he knew Achiko was right. More so, she was especially right about him getting Kiba back. He didn't care what it cost. He would get his daughter back, no matter what All for One had up his sleeve. Tomorrow he'd throw everything at the villains. But today, he would let everything out. He'd been forced to stay strong this entire time and not show just how much this whole thing was affecting him for the sake of the children. So he had plenty of tears stored up, and Achiko was willing to stay there until he was all out. All for One stood in his shadowy lab, feeling his new and improved self. Brrrr. Brrrr. Suddenly his phone rang, and he pulled it out too, and saw Garaki was trying to call him. He answered and brought it up to his ear. Did you discover something, Dr.? The heroes are evacuating the area around your current location, Garaki explained. It seems like they may have had a way to track the emerald. That would explain why Cooler was so eager to leave the country. All for One chuckled. Well played. In any case, it'll be rather problematic if that's the case. I don't want to take on the heroes just yet, and especially not on their terms. Bring me to the lab on the edge of the country. We can do something about the tracking from there. Understood. I'll have Johnny bring you there immediately. Garaki said. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX sitting over a console with a bunch of other scientists, with my watching over all of them. Have we tracked the origin? I asked. Yes, ma'am. Underneath Jaka Hospital. Another one reported. Then activate the anti-warp generator immediately. I ordered. And inform Sori and Protoman. Seems like we have a lead. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX something in his mouth. And then it suddenly stopped. All for One spat out the liquid that was in his mouth already and quickly put together what just happened. Seems like they've already used their anti-warp technology. Seems so. Kurogiri also attempts to warp to your location to inform you of the evacuation, but he couldn't use his quirk, Garaki reported, which means we're all sitting ducks. All for One side. I suppose that's what we get for relying on warp quirks this much. Now we have little choice but to act. Send out what Nomi you have available to attack the public and slow their evacuations. And try to send some scouts to figure out what's happening. I'd like to know what Midori is planning. And then everything went white. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX after blasting the building All for One had been located in. You think he's dead? Gamma 2 asked. Why do you keep asking that when we have scanners? Gamma 1 said as he scanned the inside of the cloud. And even without them, I think you already know the answer to that. The cloud dispersed, revealing a burnt All for One that was mostly unharmed, standing in the massive burnt crater that was once his base, rather casually. The man was now fully healed, with his face, eyes, and hair returned. I expected more, All for One said, as his regeneration quirks healed him instantly. Well, that did less than I hoped. Gamma 2 sighed. All Might, you're up. All for One sensed something coming at him with one of his quirks, and he looked up to see All Might barreling down at him from above, ready to stomp down on him at max force. Slam. All Might landed feet first on All for One's force field, creating a giant explosion of wind and dust and leaving a crack in the force field. All Might, somehow I knew you'd come, All for One said, looking up at his arch-nemesis with a smile. Looks like that girl helped you out as well. You'll pay for everything. All for One, All Might shouted as he cocked back his fist to punch the force field. All for One's sleeve puffed up as he got ready to unleash a powerful wind explosion. All Might saw this and jumped back, just in time as an explosion of wind erupted from All for One. I just barely dodged that, All Might thought as he landed. And that power, he must be using the emerald. But where is it? All Might, Gamma 1 called out. I'm detecting the chaos emerald from inside of All for One. What? All Might gasped. Indeed, I took the liberty of putting the emerald somewhere more difficult to remove. All for One pointed to his heart. Right here. I'm not surprised you had room. All Might shouted. Guess I'll just have to tear it out. All Might rushed forward and cocked his fist back. Detriot smash. He launched his fist at All for One, only for All for One to catch it, with seemingly little effort. All Might's eyes widened. What? The villain chuckled. Such a wonderful thing, that emerald. Let me show you its power, firsthand. Pew, pew. All for One received 2 shots in the back of his force field from both gammas, who continued blasting away at it, creating very small cracks. Damn it. Our attacks aren't even touching him. Gamma 1 growled. You two would have been a problem for me before. All for One said as he turned his attention to the gammas, pushing All Might back so he could do so. But now, you're nothing but insects. All for One brought his arm up, and his sleeve puffed up. Both of the gammas' eyes widened, and they both flew to opposite sides as quickly as they could, barely dodging a massive blast of wind All for One sent at them. Then All for One shot dozens of black tendrils from his fingers that flew up towards the gammas. Both gammas flew away, but the tendrils chased them down relentlessly and started to catch up with them. Pew, pew, pew. The gammas blasted the tendrils, destroying them, but they quickly regenerated the damage and continued their pursuit. Little help here, All Might. Gamma 2 cried as he continued shooting the tendrils. I'm trying. All Might shouted as he kept rapidly punching the barrier around All for One, but each time he shattered it, the villain would simply put it back up. Then, a portal suddenly opened, right in front of All for One's face. Crack-'em. An exploding sword was sent right in All for One's face and sent All Might flying back from the sheer force of it. All Might flipped mid-air and landed on his feet. Thank you, Ms. Bura. But still, I need to pull my own weight. I have no choice. Hopefully, my body can take it. Then he pulled out something Izuku had given him before the battle started. A might fruit. As the smoke around All for One dispersed, and he regenerated any damage done to him, All Might started eating the fruit. Now why is Ms. Bura still able to open portals? All for One mused. Could it be that she has something that nullifies the effects of whatever ENIT warping device Midoriya is using? I'll have to investigate that later. And All Might, what's that you're snacking on there? All Might took the last bite of the apple, and immediately he felt his body fill with power. The remnants of One for All coursed through his strengthened body easier than before, significantly increasing his power. Rah! Texas! The hero rushed forward at All for One, at speeds faster than All for One was ready for, and thrust his fist forward. All for One put up his force field, and All Might's fist crashed through it and slammed right into the villain's face. Smash! The long-lived villain skidded back a few feet, and a tiny bit of blood came out of his mouth. All for One hummed, as he wiped the blood off his mouth. Well, you've gone from insignificant to slight annoyance. Congratulations. Caricom. Then All for One blasted All Might with a quick charge wind blast and sent him flying away. Ag! All Might screamed out in pain as his skin was cut and torn by the wind pressure, and his bones shook and threatened to crack. All Might was sent flying away, but before he could get too far, the gammas grabbed him, even with the might fruit. Damn it, that bastard is too strong. Gamma 2 said. Fortunately, we don't have to beat him. Just keep him in place. Gamma 1 said as they lowered All Might to the ground. I'll switch to support mode. You two keep on the offensive. Understood. All Might grunted in pain as the strain from taking that last attack took its toll. Looks like even with all the Midoriya Foundation's help, you're just not what you used to be. All for One smirked as he aimed his arm at the trio, and then a dozen swords hammered into All for One from above, bursting into a powerful explosion that shook the earth. Kaboom! 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 The gammas had to take All Might further back to avoid the blast of the explosion, the radius of which only kept expanding. Gamma 1 took this as an opportunity to open up his blaster, removing the fractal and replacing it with a new one. Then he aimed at All Might and blasted him with an energy shot. All Might was covered with a glow for a second as his wounds started to heal and the pain faded. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Gamma 1 said. All for One emerged from the fire and smoke of the continued explosion, casually walking towards them as any wounds he suffered quickly healed. We still have a lot of work to do. Gamma 1 finished as he jumped behind All Might, while the number 1 hero and Gamma 2 got ready to continue the fight. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX only explosions and the sounds of the fight happening miles away. But Kurogiri ran towards them. He didn't have a choice. It was in his programming. He had to assist his master. Slam. Gah! Kurogiri shouted out in pain, as something slammed into his back from behind, pinning him down. So you're the warper that's been causing so much trouble, Gran Torino said as he pinned Kurogiri to the ground. Well, that's one less issue to deal with. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX rescue civilians from his lab hidden under his hospital, while petting the abomination known as Johnny in his lab. Or rather, he watched as Hawks's feathers defeated dozens of his Nomus in seconds, and got civilians out just as fast. Hawks's power has increased quite a bit, Garaki noted. He must be using a Chaos Emerald. That makes things far more difficult. If only my precious high-ends were anywhere close to completion. Alas. Oh, there is actually one ready. How could I forget? The girl. A bit sooner than I'd like, but it looks like I'll have to release her and dash. Scum. Suddenly the area behind him erupted with light. What? Garaki quickly spun around in his chair and saw Protoman land on the floor behind him. Midoriya's Android? How? How could you have found me? I'm afraid that blocking warping isn't the only thing we can do, Protoman explained. We can also track it. The android then aimed his cannon at Garaki. Now tell me where the girl is. Mr. Midoriya isn't in a good mood, but he's still willing to let you keep your life if you cooperate. BRRRRR. 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 Red lights and alarms blared in the lab as an intruder was detected. Suddenly, Protoman heard something quickly approaching him from behind and turned around, blasting a tentacle from an attacking Nomu that was approaching him. Raw! The tentacle Nomu roared before Protoman blasted its head off, killing it. But it was far from the only one. A whole horde of Nomus were rushing towards him with murderous intent. TCH. Protoman pulled out his shield and got ready for a fight. Meanwhile, Garaki quickly started working on his console, and as he did so, he got a notification showing that Sori had entered his hospital, and it didn't take a genius to figure out what she was here for. Oh god, I'm trapped. I have to release the girl now. It's my only chance. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX orbs kept absorbing negative energy. Much of the chaos, confusion, fear, and anger coming from an entire city being forced to evacuate, as a giant battle was waged in the heart of their city, was pouring into them. And the ball started to shake. Sori sniffed the air around the morgue of Jacko Hospital. It obviously smelled awful, but not just because of the dead bodies. No, there was something else here. But she couldn't pin it down. It seems my nose won't be enough, Sori said as she swapped focus to her ears. And after a few moments, she heard it. An airflow, heading in the direction of one of the shelves. She went over to that shelf and sniffed around it. Oh yeah, it's definitely behind here. Quickly, she tried to move the shelf, only to find that it wouldn't budge in the slightest. All right, fractal time, Sori said, taking out a body-strengthening fractal and sticking it in her mouth. Then she tried to move the shelf again, and did so with ease, breaking the secret door that the shelf was attached to. Man, I love these things, Sori said as she put the fractal back. Ruh! Almost immediately, an ostrich-looking Nomu ran at her, with its sharp teeth ready to bite, only to have its head cut off a second later, as Sori waltzed into the lab. Huh, I expected more. And that's when she saw it, a whole horde of Nomu, charging strength at her. Sori smirked and got on all fours. Now that's what I'm talking about. Come at me, you ugly bastards. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX bare hands. How unfortunate you no longer possess one for all. Not that I need it necessarily. All for One said as he started crushing All Might's head in his grasp. But it's better to make sure it can never threaten me again. I think once this is over, I'll pay a visit to that girl you gave it to. You will do no such thing. All Might roared as he started punching All for One in the gut, causing him to flinch and his grip to weaken just a smidge. Yeah, a dead man can't walk. Gamma 2 shouted from behind All for One, pointing his charged-up blaster for a point-blank shot. And then the earth suddenly shot up, forming a fist and punching Gamma 2 into the air. Gah! I do love how heroes announce themselves before they attack. Makes my life even easier than it already is. All for One chuckled. Then a portal opened right in his face and unleashed a flashbang explosion, sword point blank into his eyes. Ack! All for One hissed, as that attack had caused him the most pain by far, as his sight was suddenly taken from him once again. This is when All Might released himself from All for One's grip and punched him right in the face, sending him flying back onto his knee. He can't see. Attack him now. Got it. Gamma 2 shouted, as he flew back and went to rush All for One from the side, while All Might jumped over All for One and then tried to rush him from behind. All for One smirked, and when the two heroes got close, he grabbed onto their fists, stopping their attacks. Did you really think that would work? I have dozens of sensory quirks, letting me detect sounds, images, use radar, and all kinds of other things. Even without my eyes, I can know where you are. That includes Ms. Bura. Humph. That's exactly what we wanted. All Might thought. Meanwhile, up above in the air, Gamma 1 called base. He's using his sensory quirks. Activate the device now. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. You heard him. Activate the anti-All for One device. I shouted to her staff. Yes, ma'am, her staff said, as they pushed the buttons needed to activate the machine. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX hissing sound fill his ears, and he was rendered unable to move, being in simply unbearable pain that came from his head. It felt as if his brain was attempting to burn through his skull and set his entire body on fire. He opened his mouth to scream, but nothing came out. He released both All Might and Gamma 2 and fell to his knees as blood started leaking from his mouth, nose, and eyes. "Now," Gamma 2 shouted. All Might brought up both his arms and then brought them down on All for One's head. Crockum. The mighty blow increased the size of the crater and caused an explosion of wind to erupt, but Gamma 2 and All Might paid it no mind as they continued their assault, punching and kicking the down as much as they could, trying to overwhelm the regeneration quirks that tried to undo their progress. What is this? What is this pain? All for One thought as he was helplessly beaten upon by the two heroes, and pain kept him on his knees. He activated every pain nullification quirk he could, but nothing could ease the immense suffering he was going through. It hurts to think. I can't imagine the amount of pain you're experiencing right now. Villain. Gamma 1 thought. After all, this device was made for you. The anti-All for One weapon was a series of towers placed along the city that, when activated, would release energy into the air. Normally, this was harmless. However, if someone were to be using multiple sensory quirks, then their brains would pick it up and be extremely overwhelmed by sheer information overload, causing immense pain and almost certain death. The only reason you're still alive is because of the dozens of quirks you stole to sustain yourself. Gamma 1 thought. Still, I can't imagine this will last forever. Eventually, you'll figure out what's going on and turn off all your sensory quirks. Then the towers will be useless. How much longer until the evacuation is complete? Gamma 1 asked over comms. 7 more minutes, Hawks reported. We need 7 more minutes. Gamma 1 clenched his teeth. All right, we should be able to dash. BRRRR. BRRR. BRRR. Suddenly, Gamma 1 detected a massive spike in energy and looked down to see that energy was building inside of All for One. He figured it out that quickly. Gamma 1 shouted. All Might. Gamma 2. Run. You won't survive this next attack. What? The two of them stopped their attacks and jumped back. But it was too late. Enough. All for One shouted, as suddenly his body turned white. And in the next second, everything was white. Hawks had never felt so powerful, and yet so powerless at the same time. The Chaos Emerald had improved everything about his quirk. His feathers were faster and stronger, and their range of control had increased significantly, allowing him to use them to carry people to the shelters from all over the city. Even better, any time a feather detached from his wings, it instantly grew back, giving him practically unlimited feathers to work with. And even still, he was no match for All for One. If he tried to join that battle, he'd get swatted away like a bug. So all he could do was get this evacuation done as fast as possible, and hope those four could handle Dash. Kakrakum. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupted from the center of the city, larger than the others, that might have pushed into the clouds and the surrounding buildings, destroying both. Hawk quickly looked away to keep from going blind, and his ears bleed from the overwhelming sound of the blast. For miles, windows and even whole buildings cracked and shattered as the blast expanded and expanded until stopping. After a couple more minutes, the explosion died down and faded away. Another few minutes later, Hawks could finally hear again and spoke into the comms. What the hell happened? Did you drop the bomb? No, that was all for one. My said through his earpiece. He seemed to have initiated some kind of explosion attack. All Might. Gammas 1 and 2. Report. Are you okay? Silence. Shit. Hawks cursed. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Back in the crater, All for One was kneeling in the now town-sized crater he'd made. His clothes had been destroyed, and his body was steaming from the attack. While he had turned off his sensory quirks, the pain still lingers, and his mind was addled. The only reason he was even able to function at the moment was thanks to his quirks. He looked up and saw that the crater was empty. Neither All Might nor the Gammas could be seen. Are they finally dead? All for One said, getting to his feet while clutching his head. I should have never played around like that. I should know better after what happened during my last fight with All Might. Speaking of whom, did he really die? There's no way he could have survived that blast. Not even during the peak of his power, but still. With the help of the Midoriya. Who knows what he's capable of? Kaboom. Then suddenly more exploding swords rained down on him from above. Dozens of swords, each one capable of destroying a city block with their explosions, rained down on All for One, destroying his force field, and doing a little damage to him. Although his regeneration quickly fixed that. Ah yes, Ms. Bureau was rather far away. So I suppose that explosion wouldn't have caught her. All for One thought, as he faced the direction he'd detected Sai in before he had to shut down his sensory quirks. About time I took care of her, and took that emerald. Shum. All for One jumped up with explosive force, heading toward the direction of Sai. Only for a portal to get in his way, and All Might and the Gammas popped out and tripped and smashed him back down into the crater. I knew it. All for One growled as he got back up. All Might landed a few yards in front of him, while the Gammas stayed in the air, totally unharmed by the explosion. I see. All for One said. Ms. Bureau must have used her quirk to hide you away in her pocket dimension before the explosion reached you. Clever. And annoying. I've been holding back up until this point, for the sake of entertaining myself and taking my revenge in a satisfying manner. How foolish a decision that was. From now on, I'll be taking this fight seriously. Before All Might could even take in what All for One said, in the next moment, the villain was suddenly in front of him, and his fist went right into his chest. Then everything went black. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX nomas she slaughtered. Man, there were a lot of those things. Wonder how many tin heads have been killed already. Pew, pew, pew. Sori then heard the sounds of blaster shots being fired up ahead. Looks like I'm about to find out. She ran up ahead and noticed a lot of Nomu that had been torn apart, but not a drop of blood could be seen. Huh, that's odd. As she got closer to the sounds of the fight, she turned the corner, and immediately she felt a chilling sense of dread overcome her. Slam. Sori barely managed to dodge to the side, as something rushed at her, missing her, and slamming through the wall hard enough to shake the entire facility. Oh shit, Sori muttered, as she immediately pulled out her fractal. If it was a second later with that dodge, I'd be dead. Sori. She turned her head back towards the room that thing came from, and saw Protoman, lying on the ground, with an arm missing. Be careful. She's much stronger than we expected, Protoman explained, as Sori ran towards him and helped him to his feet. Don't tell me. Sori quickly realized what that was. That was Dash. Kiba, Protoman confirmed. Rah! Suddenly, Kiba, in what looked like her berserk state, rushed back into the room. Rah! She rushed at Sori with blinding speed, and Sori just barely managed to duck, letting Kiba fly over her head and slam into the wall, shaking the facility again. While Kiba was pulling herself out of the wall, Sori took out a syringe from her pocket and rushed at Kiba. She stabbed Kiba with the needle, only for the needle to break against her skin. Sori's eyes widened. Oh fuck. Kiba's nails turned into claws, and she tried to slash at Sori, but Sori stepped back to avoid it. And then she felt something grab her foot, holding her in place. Duck! Protoman shouted. Sori ducked, avoiding Kiba's next attack, while also avoiding the charged shot Protoman blasted Kiba with. Then she looked down at her foot and saw that a hand had come out of her shadow and grabbed her. She slashed it and jumped back next to Protoman. The hell was that? She can control shadows, Protoman explained. Don't you guard down? Even for a moment. Or we're dead. Meanwhile, the smoke that was created from the charged shot cleared, and Kiba was shown to be unharmed. Rah? Sori shook her head. Just couldn't make it easy, could you, Lady K? All might. Gamma 1 shouted as he saw the number 1 hero get sent flying, hitting the edge of the crater and destroying it, causing the earth to shake. He took his blaster out to shoot a healing shot at All Might, only for All for One's black tendrils to shoot out of his fingers and rush up at Gamma 1, far faster than before, and wrap around his blaster as well as his arm. What? Gamma 1 gasped. Shirt. And then in that next moment, Gamma 1's arm was torn off. Gah! Gamma 1 looked at his now missing arm, which was emitting sparks. That's enough of that. All for One said, as he brought Gamma 1's blaster to him and crushed it. Gamma 1. Gamma 2 shouted, before turning back to All for One with an enraged look. You bastard. Gamma 2 charged at All for One, taking out his blaster and peppering him with shots as he rushed toward him. All for One blocked the shots with his force field, and when Gamma 2 got close and was preparing for a punch, he slapped him to the side, sending him flying into the side of the crater, which practically exploded from the force of the android crashing into it. Bang! Suddenly a flashbang sword slammed into the ground right in front of him, blinding him. All right, I think I'm done with this now. All for One said after restoring his eyesight. He was officially done with Sai now, and so he aimed up his arm toward the direction he'd detected said earlier. His sleeve puffed up, and black energy wrapped around it. Crockum! All for One unleashed a blast of wind and lightning like a storm focused in one direction that plowed through every building that got in its way. They blast everything as far as the eye could see in that direction, utterly decimated. Just dirt and rubble. Well, hopefully, that killed her. All for One said to himself. Shing. All for One felt something stab into his back and right through his heart. The villain coughed up a bit of blood and turned around to Sai standing there, having used her portals to sneak up behind him and stab him through the heart with the dagger of destiny. This is for my team. You bastard. Sai growled as she dug the dagger into his back. Oh, Ms. Bura, it was your lack of understanding that killed your team in the end. All for One chuckled as blood spilled out of his mouth, and his body got progressively colder and heavier. Castor wasn't exactly hard to spot as a traitor. If you just paid a bit more attention, then okay, why am I dying? None of his regenerative quirks were working to repair his heart, and he was starting to feel the power of the emerald fade, as his heart could no longer conduct its power. Also, he was dying. So I took the dagger out of his back and backed up, allowing the villain to fall to his knees. This dagger was made to kill people like you. You can't fix the damage, no matter how hard you try. Oh, clever. All for One then extended his arm and dug it into his own chest. Ruh, what? Sai stepped back, her mouth hanging open in shock. The villain then pulled out his own damaged heart, with the Chaos Emerald still inside of it. If I can't repair my heart, then I'll just have to replace it. With his damaged heart taken out, a new heart was remade and all the damage was fixed. Yu Ba Dash Sai's curses were cut off, as she was shot in the chest by laser beams that came out of All for One's eyes. The former hero fell to the ground, blood leaking from her mouth. Finally, All for One sighed as he looked at Sai's fallen body, noting the lack of Chaos Emerald. She must have left it in her pocket dimension. I wonder if it will exit when she dies. Unfortunately, I can't stick around to see. I should leave before Midoriya unleashes whatever surprise he has in store next. Flash Fire Fist. Whoosh. Suddenly, an incredibly strong burst of flame came in from the side and burned away the arm All for One was using to hold the Chaos Emerald, causing it to drop to the ground. All for One's eyes widened in shock, and quickly he shot black tendrils from his fingers to pick it up, but he was tackled from behind by Endeavor, charging into him at full force, shrouded in flames. I won't allow it, Endeavor shouted, as he used his quirk to fly all for one into the side of the crater, dragging him through the ground. Endeavor! All for one shouted out in rage, as the number 2 hero held him by the head and dragged him across the ground, the flames being so intense that All for One had to focus his enhancement quirks into his regeneration quirks to not get his head burned off. Did you think I would just sit by and allow others to risk their lives while I remain on the sidelines? Endeavor shouted, his flames exploding and burning even hotter, turning into a blinding white. Gah! All for One had to focus even more on his defensive and regenerative quirks. His quirk. It shouldn't be this powerful. How? A Chaos Emerald? No, it's something else. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX standing up. Tuya has left, and Shoto and Fuyumi have gone back to their rooms, which left Endeavor and Izuku alone. Endeavor, Izuku said, getting the hero's attention and pulling him out of his thoughts. I can't imagine the things going through your mind. Why would you do all this? What you're feeling, what you're thinking. But it seems like at the very least, something hero-like and something father-like remains inside of you, covered and suppressed by whatever issues you have. I may not like you, but I am a believer in second chances. Should you be willing to earn one? Izuku then took out a mite fruit and rolled it to Endeavor. Take this, and when the time comes, prove to me and to your family that you're worth our time. Number 2 hero, Endeavor. I don't understand anything anymore. It feels like I've been in a haze. Endeavor thought as he dragged the villain. What was going through my head? Why did I do what I did to all of them? I didn't want to hurt them, so why? Did I really not care? Did I really not even notice? It's all so confusing, but I do know this. Right now, there is a thread in front of me, and it's my job as the number 2 hero to burn it to a crisp. All for One's sleeve expanded, and an explosion of wind knocked Endeavor back, off of All for One, and back into the crater, where he landed on his feet. The villain quickly jumped back into the crater with him and looked at the spot where the Chaos Emerald was, only to find it missing. No, where could it have? That robot. Meanwhile, Gamma 1 was flying away, holding the Chaos Emerald in his one remaining hand and set on his shoulder. This is Gamma 1. I've retrieved the Chaos Emerald, and am now heading back to the Foundation. Good work, One. Dr. Zeno shouted exuberantly over comms. Back in the crater, All for One was staring down Endeavor, with a glare so pointed it's a wonder Endeavor didn't die from sheer malice. You damn heroes. I've had enough of this. The ground started to shake, and Endeavor wisely made the decision to jump into the air. He was just in time, as suddenly the ground shot spikes up at where he had been standing, which would have impaled him if he was just a second late. Massive arms shot out of the ground, rushing towards Endeavor. Endeavor shot small beams of fire from his fingertips, initiating his special move. Hell Spider. The flame hero manipulated the beams and had them dice up the arms into chunks. But no matter how many he cut down, more arms simply rose up and came at him. TCH. Endeavor changed tactics and flew up higher into the sky away from the arms, before turning back down and staying at All for One. Flash Fire Fist. He shot down a beam of intense flames at All for One, forcing the villain to jump back and stop focusing on his earth manipulation quirk to make sure he didn't get cooked. All for One looked up at Endeavor and fired beams from his eyes at him, which clashed with Endeavor's fire, and slowly but surely overpowering it. GRRRR. Endeavor put everything he had into this Flash Fire Fist, but still, he could barely keep up with All for One's own power. Fortunately, he wouldn't have to. Detroit, shouted out a familiar voice from behind One for All. What? All for One shouted. Smash. All Might came in from behind and punched All for One in the back, sending him flying forward, skidding across the ground on his face. All Might. All for One growled, as he quickly got back on her feet. Did you think something like that would kill me? All for One. All Might shouted as blood leaked from his mouth. In truth, that last attack had broken most of his ribs and damaged his internal organs, but like hell he'd let that stop him. Kaboom. Suddenly All for One was shot in the back by Gamma 2, who was covered in dents and scratches as sparks shot out from his body. Same goes for me. Heroes. All for One growled as he healed the heavy burns on his back. Don't think you'll walk away from this alive. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX hospital, with Kiba in pursuit. Rah! Kiba shouted as she rushed Sori, who jumped onto the side of the wall, avoiding Kiba as she charged straight through the entire hospital and into the city. Good. There's no way I could deal with her in such a tight space. And with the city mostly evacuated, I don't have to worry about her hurting anyone. Sori thought as she ran out of the hole Kiba created. Grr! Rah! Kiba shouted as she suddenly sprouted wings from her back and flew into the air. Shadows flew up from the ground, flying up next to Kiba and turning to jagged blades before flying down at Sori. Sori ran and dodged all of the attacks. I can't bet on her getting any weaker. I don't even know if she still has that weakness, and even if she does, I don't know if I can last that long. I have to end this now. Sorry, Lady K. This is gonna hurt. She continued to dodge the remaining shadow blades until Kiba herself flew down at tremendous speeds and slammed into the ground, so hard that it created a shock wave that knocked Sori away. Ugh! Sori tumbled across the ground, but quickly regained her stance, getting to her feet and stopping herself from flying back further by digging her claws into the ground. This is my chance. If I don't do this perfectly, I'm dead. Sori dug into her pocket and took out another syringe as Kiba looked up at her from the crater she made. Rah! Kiba roared as she charged at Sori once again, flying at her with her claws extended forward. Sori rushed in, needle thrust forward like a weapon, and when Kiba got close, she stabbed her right in the eye. Ah! Kiba shouted out in pain as the formula from the needle was injected into her. Sori jumped back and watched as Kiba fell to the ground and started spasming on the ground. Oh, gg. Rah! Kiba cried out as flopped around on the ground in pain. Sori winced, but she knew it meant the formula was probably working. All quirks carry a kind of consciousness, or at least a foundation for one. She recalled my explaining when she handed them the needles. As such, when you take or copy a quirk from someone, you're also taking a bit of their consciousness, a remnant of that person. By liquidizing a fractal containing that person's quirk, as well as combining it with Ares' power, we can restore a person to how they were, even if their brains have been radically altered, by making the remnant of that person's being take over and rewrite the brain back to how it was before. It's far from perfect, and will likely cause an immense amount of suffering, and will require a lengthy recovery period. But it's our only hope of getting Kiba back. Ddyyyy. Kiba cried out, as tears streamed down her face. Did what? Sori rushed over to Kiba and kneeled down. Hey, it's okay, Lady K. We'll get you back to the boss soon. Just go to sleep. Kiba looked up at her, confused and in pain, but with some level of recognition. She closed her eyes and let sleep overtake her. Sori breathed a sigh of relief and took the girl into her arms, as well as taking the syringe out of her eye. Much to her surprise, the wound she made had immediately healed, thanks to a regeneration quirk she'd been given. Huh, that's convenient, Sori said. Before using her comms, this is Sori. I've finished my mission. Kiba's been injected and kinda turned back normal, just like you said. Heading back now. I'm finished up here as well, Protoman said through comms. He'd stayed behind to take care of Garaki. Garaki is unconscious, but I have bad news. While we were distracted with Kiba, he sent out his research to unknown associates. We'll deal with that later. Get Kiba home immediately. I said. The bomb will be dropping soon, so we don't have time to what? XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX anymore. Back in the labs, alarms were going off, and the whole building was starting to rumble. "What's going on?" I shouted at her scientist. "Mayim, it's the shadow fractals. They're starting to rapidly emit energy." One of the scientists said. "What?" I said. But before she could say anything else, suddenly, the shadow fractal orbs burst through the center of the building, knocking away any scientist nearby and tearing through the lab into the sky. I looked through the massive hole they'd made and saw the orbs, shrouded in dark energy. And then, they all shot off in different directions, disappearing from sight. "That can't be good," I said to herself. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Flash Fire Fist. Endeavor shouted as he unleashed a power attack at All for One, while Gamma 2 unleashed a blast at the same time. Kaboom! The two blasts hit their target, and the collision made a giant explosion. All for One slid down the destroyed crater side, landing face first in a pile of rubble. Damn it! This can't be. This ends now. All for One. All Might shouted. Looks like we don't even need the bomb to beat him. Gamma 2 said confidently. Bomb? All for One questioned. Be quiet, you idiot. Endeavor shouted at the android. Oh, relax. Without the Chaos Emerald, he's not a match for the power of true justice. Gamma 2 said, striking a pose. BRRRRR. 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 Huh. Gamma 2 stopped his theatrics when he suddenly decided something. Something's coming towards us. A few seconds later, it arrived. Stopping in the air above the combatants was the one-star shadow orb. What the hell is that? Endeavor asked as they all looked at the orb. It's a shadow fractal orb. Gamma 2 answered. But what's it doing here? Then, the shadow fractal's dark aura started to spill out more and more, becoming thicker and thicker, until the ball could no longer be seen. After a few moments, the aura subsided, and a new creature could be seen floating in the air. It was a large and bulky humanoid creature with mostly dark gray armored skin, with some yellow designs on his chest and forearms, as well as some unarmored parts that were dark blue. The creature had two long horns extending from its head, for black spikes coming out of its back, as well as 4 more coming from its elbows and knees, and 3 more on its chin. It had long elf-like ears coming out of the sides of its head, and what looked like some kind of dark gray mustache. Lastly, the shadow fractal orb was lodged in its forehead. The creature slowly descended to the ground, in the center of the battlefield, in between the heroes and All for One. Who are you? Tell us why you're here, or we'll assume you're an enemy. Endeavor shouted. The created paid him no mind, and instead looked over to All for One, and gave a sinister smirk. He rushed over to the weakened villain and grabbed him by the face. What are you? All for One stopped when he noticed something arising from within him. Power. A dark aura started forming around All for One that got bigger and bigger each second. And then, it exploded, erupting into a pillar of darkness that reached into the sky. Ah shit. Gamma 2 cursed, as he noticed the stupid amount of chaos energy coming off of those two. When the darkness died down, the two were visible once more. But All for One looked different. His skin was now pitch black, and 2 white horns formed on his forehead. His nails had turned into claws, and his torn and tattered shirt had completely been destroyed. Lastly, his white hair had grown out, now being a bush of hair that reached his lower back. There you are. The creature cackled as it removed its hand from All for One's face. What is this? All for One asked, though an exhilarated laugh, as he let his new power flow through him, a dark aura that resonated from his body. This power, it's not as much as the emerald, but it's far from unwelcome. Each time you stole a quirk, you took a remnant of that person with you. The monster explained. Enslaved by your quirk, those hundreds of remnants stewed inside you, their hatred growing with each passing second. This is that hatred unleashed and made manifest. This is the power of hatred. I see. All for One smirked, before looking back at the heroes. Well, it seems like the tides have turned yet again. And what was that about a bomb? Endeavor gave Gamma 2 a glare, and the android just hung his head in shame. Oh, you need not worry about that, my friend. The monster said as he looked up. I will take care of that. PWM. Suddenly, red lasers shot from the monster's eyes, shooting up high into the sky, until it hit the bomber ship that was flying high above. Crockum. The beam caused the ship to explode, unleashing the power of the bomb that exploded in a bright green flash of light. After a few moments, the flash died down. Damn it, Endeavor roared. Bomb 1 is gone. We're flying in bombs 2. You have to make sure it reaches its target. I shouted over comms. On it, Gamma 2 said. You too. I need you guys to hold off, All for One. I'll take the monster. Monster. I think I'd much prefer it if I had a name. The creature said. I like the sound of Sin. Yes, call me Sin, and I will be your despair. Smash. All Might shouted as he and All for One's fists collided, and air rushed all around them. It seems our pure strength is about equal now. All for One said as he and All Might pushed at each other, trying to overpower the other. But how long can you last with those wounds? Fortunately for me, I don't have to fight you alone. All Might shouted. Prominence burn. Endeavor shouted as he unleashed a huge beam of white-hot fire at All for One's back. All for One forced the earth behind him to rise, to try and block the blast, but Endeavor's fire just burned through it with ease, before slamming into All for One's force field. Crack. With cracks quickly forming in All for One's force field, he knew if he didn't do something in the next 2 seconds, things would get very, very hot, very, very fast. And so he grabbed All Might's fist and jumped up into the air, getting out of the way of the blast, and then throwing All Might down towards it. All Might elbowed the air behind him, sending him flying back up at All for One and letting him get a good punch in the face as he flew past. TCH. All for One grabbed All Might's leg before charging up a blast. Wind started gathering and swirling around his arm, and black lightning crackled with it. He then unleashed the Dark Storm blast right at All Might, hitting him point blank. Raga! All Might cried out in pain as the lightning fried him and the wind threatened to tear off his skin and break his bones once again. Endeavor came rocketing in and blasted All for One right in the face with white-hot flames, causing him to scream out in agony, loosening his grip on All Might. All Might kicked All for One's regenerating face, sending him back to the ground. The number 1 hero then shot himself down towards All for One, landing right in front of the villain who was getting back on his feet. Smash! All Might shouted as he shot his fist forward. All for One dodged the attack and then kneed All Might, knocking the wind out of him, before punching him in the face and sending him flying once again. Prominence burn. Endeavor shouted from above as he slammed a powerful beam of fire down right onto All for One. His force field shattered in seconds, leaving the villain exposed to the raw heat of the attack, which started to burn him away a little faster than his regeneration could heal him. All for One summoned Earth arms up from the ground and had them rush up towards Endeavor. TCH. Endeavor stopped his attack and focused on attacking the arms to make sure he didn't get crushed by them. But this ended up being a mistake, as All for One used his immense speed to get behind Endeavor in a flash. Game check, Endeavor. Slam. All for One punched Endeavor in the back, sending him back towards the ground, hitting it so hard it practically exploded. All for One smiled as he saw Endeavor laying in a crater spitting blood and unable to move. Give it back. Huh. All for One heard something in his head, a voice screaming out. But he didn't have much time to think about that, as All Might came flying back in, with his fist cocked back. North Carolina smash. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Humph. Gamma 2 took out his blaster and started unloading on Sin, but the blaster shots went right through Sin's body, doing no damage. Sin just smirked and pointed at Gamma 2 before unleashing small blasts of dark energy. Gamma 2 easily dodged the blasts and batted away one that got too close to him before charging at Sin. Sin tried to punch Gamma 2, but the android detected the attack and landed a solid punch to Sin's face, and then another, and then a knee to the stomach before kicking him away. The mutated Grim stopped himself before he flew too far, before readjusting himself and smiling at Gamma 2. An impressive display. I can't deny you're far more skilled than I, but that doesn't really matter when none of your attacks truly harm me. Gamma 2 saw that all the damage he'd done to Sin was no longer present and scanned him. Damn it, his body's just a fake made of energy. He can just dematerialize it or repair it at will. The only part that'll really affect him is the ball. The android then pulled out his blaster and started unleashing more shots, aimed exclusively at the ball in its forehead. Sin's eyes widened as he realized Gamma 2 had figured him out, and he started dodging the blasts while covering the ball on his head. Tell me, what do you even want? What exactly are you trying to do here? Gamma 2 asked as he unleashed more shots at the monster. Isn't that obvious? I want to spread as much fear and despair as I can, and that man will make the perfect pawn to do so. Sin said, as such, I can't allow him to die here, so I'm afraid I'll have to reduce you to scrap. Sin then unleashed a powerful blast of negative energy right at Gamma 2. Gamma 2, in response, simply flew upwards to dodge the blast, only for it to start following him. Oh, not this again. The powerful android continued to fly away from the blast, gaining some distance before blasting it with shots from his blaster until it exploded. Huh. Gamma 2 smirked as he spun his blaster on his finger before holstering it. You see that, you freak. Nothing you do can wait. Where'd you go? The mutated Grim had used the blast as a distraction to fly away towards the ship. In about half a minute, he found it. The second bomber ship, flying towards the crater where the fight with All for One was still raging on. Sin smirked and shot out more lasers from his eyes to destroy the ship, only for the ship to duck down, avoiding the shot. Don't think it'll be that easy the second time, Sin. My said through the speakers as she flew the ship remotely. Pow! What she said, Gamma 2 said, as he came in from the side and kicked Sin inside of the face, sending him crashing down through a building and onto the street. Grrrr, Sin growled as he pulled himself up, only for Gamma 2 to stop him, his head back into the ground, creating another crater. You know, when you came in the way that you did, I would have thought you'd be tougher. Gamma 2 said as he continued to press his food down on Sun's head, adding pressure onto the orb as well. Crack. A crack appeared in the orb, and Sun's eyes widened with fear. Grr, damn you, Sun shouted, as his body started to glow, and Gamma 2 sensed that he was gathering energy for a big attack. Oh, Gamma 2 said, as he jumped off Sin and flew into the air. Kaboom. There was a big flash as Sin's body exploded. Gamma 2 managed to fly out of the radius of the explosion, and when it died down, he scanned for Sin, only to find that not only had he vanished, but so had his energy. Huh, guess he must have blown himself up. What a moron. But that does make my job easier. And so the android flew back to the main battle, missing the small cracked ball that was hiding underground. That damn android. I can't afford to continue fighting anymore. Otherwise, I'll be killed. Sin thought. I must absorb more energy. I will be the most powerful being on Earth. Mark my words. Humph. All for One launched another dark storm blast of wind and lightning at All Might. But the number one hero dodged to the side, while destroying walls All for One made to try and slow him down. All Might made his way to All for One and went to punch him in the face, but All for One unleashed a stream of fire from his mouth and lasers from his eyes, repelling the hero away from him, as he had no choice but to jump away to avoid further damage. Damn it! All Might was breathing heavily. His body hurt so much. Blood was pouring from his wounds, and he was sure he'd broken his right leg. The only thing keeping him standing at this point was pure determination. What's worse, he could feel the flickers of One for All being snuffed out. He couldn't continue on for much longer. It seems like you're finally on your last legs, All Might. All for One laughed. In truth, he was quite tired. His quirks restored his body, but he was still affected by fatigue, both physical and mental. And he knew he needed to get out of there before the bomb dropped. But first, he'd kill All Might. Once and for all. All for One's right arm suddenly started growing. Red veins could be seen, and white bony spikes popped out. This will be the final blow, All Might. All Might looked at the arm and took a fighting stance, cocking back his own right arm. For once, I agree. The hero focused everything, every last remaining drop of One for All, into that arm, which glowed brightly with its power. All for One and All Might charged at each other, ready to unleash the final clash of blows that would decide the fight. Master, All Might thought as he saw All for One get closer. I promised I would avenge you. You suffered so much, sacrificed so much, all because of this monster. I will defeat him, so you can finally rest in peace. United States of Smash, All Might shouted, as he and All for One thrust their fist at each other. Kakum. The sheer force of their fist colliding caused the air around them to explode. Wind spiraled around the crater so strong it destroyed what remained of the surrounding buildings, and the earth crumbled around them. Meanwhile, Gamma 2 flew in and saw the whole thing from above. Whoa, Gamma 2. The bomb's in place, but Endeavor and All Might are still in the blast radius. My set over comms, and All Might's not holding the fractal. All right, leave it to me, Gamma 2 said as he flew down. Back with All Might and All for One, the two were stuck in a contest of strength, and All for One was starting to push All Might back. Grrrr. All Might growled as he struggled to hold his ground. This is your end, All for One shouted, with a giant smile on his face. Give it back, thief. I'll kill you. Die, die, die. Suddenly, All for One started to hear even more voices in his head, and now he started to see black figures surrounding him, glaring at him. What? Die! 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 Aga! All for One cried out in pain as the cries grew louder, and he felt like something inside him was tearing apart. All Might noticed All for One's attack growing weaker and pushed back. That's when Gamma 2 made his way behind him and stuck a fractal in his mouth. Looks like you dropped that. You better hold on to that. All Might noticed the android was holding the fallen Endeavor and knew what was going to happen next, nodding as the android flew off. A few moments later, he could hear something coming down towards them. Then everything went green. I want to start this with an apology, Izuku said. The green-haired teen was on a wooden stage that was set up ahead of the now walled-off area that had been evacuated before. In front of him was a massive crowd of people, not just the press, but regular people, as well as some heroes. On stage beside him were Tokoshi and Sue acting as his guard, All Might off to the side a bit. And lastly Gamma 1 and 2. A couple days ago, we faced a threat, unlike anything we'd faced before. Izuku explained. The leader of the League of Villains, All for One, had stolen research from my foundation and used it to artificially increase his power, to the point where even All Might struggles to defeat him. Gasps erupted from the crowd. The idea that All Might could struggle against someone was inconceivable. As such, after locating him, we knew that a battle against him would be destructive, which is why we had no choice but to evacuate the area. Izuku explained. And indeed the battle was long and hard, and lead to much destruction. What's worse, the villain even unleashed a plague on the area, covering it in dangerous bacteria. In truth, that was the bomb's doing. Its rewind effect has not just restored the plant life to how it was thousands of years ago, but also the bacteria, which is why it is so dangerous now. That and all the debris, which is one of the reasons why the cleanup effort will, unfortunately, take quite some time, Izuku said, giving the disheartened crowd a sympathetic look. I know many of you are now without homes for the time being, and most of your possessions have been destroyed, and for that, we sincerely apologize. Izuku gave the crowd an apologetic bow before continuing. But fortunately, the villain was defeated, and without a single loss of life. Thanks to our brave heroes, including 2 new heroes, I would like to introduce you to today. 2 creations of the Midoriya Foundations, and some of the first fully sentient androids, Gamma 1 and 2. Gamma 1, please introduce yourself. Izuku stepped aside, and Gamma 1 took to the podium. He looked down at the crowd, who all looked at him with a combination of emotions. Curiosity, worry, fear, astonishment. This would be the first proper interaction between the public and a sentient android. No pressure. Hello, I am Midoriya Foundation model number 001 of the Gamma series, and I am a superhero. Gamma 1 introduced. Though I may be an android, rest assured I'm not a heartless machine like you've seen in movies. I can feel just like the rest of you and dash. Okay, that's enough. Gamma 2 said, pushing Gamma 1 to the side. What? 2. What are you doing? Gamma 1 demanded. I'm supposed to give the speech. Yeah, and I see that was a mistake. How are they supposed to get the message about us not just being machines when you AI generated your speech? Gamma 2 pointed out. AI generated? I spent hours putting together that speech. Gamma 1 objected. Well, there's your problem. You overthought it. Gamma 2 said. This speech has to come from the heart. No script needed, just watch. Gamma 2 then turned to the audience and gave them a confident smile. Hey there everyone. Name's Gamma 2. I have a full android assigned Midoriya model number and all that, but one already said all that, so I'll skip it. Look, I know you're all a little spooked with sentient AI and All Might's retirement dash. All Might's retiring, shouted the entire crowd in shock. I'll wait, did we not get there yet? Gamma 2 realized, causing everyone behind him to facepalm. Oh well, anyway, we were made by the great Dr. Zeno, in the form of the coolest thing on Earth. Superheroes. And as a hero, I swear to uphold peace, punch bad guys in the face, and look absolutely awesome. Huh. Gamma 2 then jumped back and struck a pose. After a bit of absolute awkward silence, Izuku pushed Gamma 2 aside. Thank you, Gammas. Now, as you've heard, All Might will be unfortunately retiring. I'll allow the man himself to tell you more about that, and give you all a proper goodbye. Izuku stepped aside, and allowed All Might to take the mix. Thank young Midoriya. Hello everyone. As you've heard, I am, unfortunately, retiring. I know many of you have come to rely on my strength, and I was happy to support you all with it. But unfortunately, that time must come to an end. That battle against All for One and against old age has left my strength diminished. It is with a heavy heart that I was forced to realize I could no longer continue as a hero in this state. But fear not, the Gammas, as eccentric as they are reliable heroes, and without them, I would never defeated All for One, not to mention all the other heroes who helped in the effort. Plus, as a teacher at UA, I can say with confidence that the future of heroes is bright, with many promising students ready to jump onto the field. You are all in good hands. So please never fear, because they will be there for all of you. Thank you, All Might, Izuku said, taking the mic once again. Now, allow me to explain what we're going to do next. Firstly, the Midoriya Foundation will be taking charge of the reconstruction. And we won't just be rebuilding everyone. We'll be making improvements as well. But I want to stress that no one's home, business, or other property will be taken away from them. Some of you may be given offers if we want to acquire your property, but you are free to turn them down. To everyone who currently has nowhere to stay, you are all free to stay in the shelters. Lastly, the Midoriya Foundation intends on creating more androids to help with various parts of life. Construction, research, and various things. You can see any updates about this on the Midoriya Foundation website. Now, I think we're about done here. If any of you have questions, please ask them on the Midoriya Foundation website. Our personnel will answer any question within their power. Thank you all for coming. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone here for all their hard work, Izuku said. He was now back at the lab meeting room with all the head scientists. You all did so much, and none of this would have been possible without you, Izuku said to start the meeting. Just wanted to make that clear. Now on to the main topic. Does anyone want to explain? What the hell happened with that sin monster? We apologize, sir. We got so overwhelmed with everything that was happening. We had little time to pay attention to what was happening. Shadow Dragon Balls. Dragon Balls? Izuku asked. Well, since that thing kinda looks like a dragon, we decided to name the balls Dragon Balls. Dr. Zeno explained. We've also decided to give these monsters a name. Shinron. As such, Sin is now Sin Shinron. A pretty cool name, don't you think? Izuku did not look impressed. Can you please just explain where this thing came from? Right? We don't have the balls anymore, so we can only theorize. But our current theory is that when the fractals became shadow fractals, Yami's chaos energy activated something in them, causing them to start developing a kind of sentience, until they fully formed, and then decided to leave, for reasons unknown. Mai explained, although for Sin, it can be assumed by his actions that he wants to continue absorbing negative energy and gain power. So he's a villain. Although Gamma too said he killed him. Izuku said, that's unlikely. Dr. Zeno added, blushing with embarrassment. Looking at the footage of what happened, even if Sun was destroyed, there would still be traces of his energy left. For his chaos energy signature to have vanished completely, he likely hid it somehow, and Gamma too just kinda assumed he died. So he's still wandering around out there. Izuku rubbed his temples, along with 6 other of these Shinron creatures, doing who knows what. I need this under control immediately. Find some way to locate them, and deal with them as quickly as possible. Well, we do know the location of one of them, Mai said, as her face went bright red. And she doesn't seem to be doing anything evil, but, well, just take a look, sir, Hada said, as he got up and showed Izuku his phone. What was on the phone was an adult website, and the woman featured on this page of the website was rather beautiful. She had very smooth dark blue skin and long hair that was an even darker shade of blue. Her features were practically perfect. The only slightly off-putting thing was the 6-star Dragon Ball sticking out of her forehead. Izuku promptly set the phone down. What was that? It seems that the 6-star Shinron has started gaining a rather large amount of money from, well, you can hazard a guess from that, Mai said. We've currently not made contact with her, so we don't know her motives. She also seems to be calling herself Oceana. Alrighty then, just see what's up with her. If she's harmless, then keep an eye on her. If not, capture her. Izuku ordered. Moving on from that, Kurogiri will be transported here for study. I want a cell ready for him, and I want it to be inescapable. I also want a fractal made using his quirk as soon as possible. And speaking of what we acquired from Dr. Garaki, have we figured out who the doctor sent his notes to yet? His computer was searched, but we couldn't trace it, Mai said. The interrogations didn't give us anything? Those are still underway. Izuku sighed. Well, if that's all everyone has to say, Dr. Hata, please take me to Kiba. Got it, Dr. Hata said, getting out of his seat and leaving to guide Izuku. XXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Kiba was being kept in the lab, in a special room similar to a hospital room, but way more high-tech. The girl herself was lying unconscious in a hospital bed, dozens of machines connected to every part of her body, including 2 tubes going in through her ears all the way into her brain. Izuku looked over at his daughter, and he felt sick. How could someone do this to a child? To anyone? And how could he have let it happen? How is the restoration process going? Izuku asked. Slow, Dr. Hata said. Her toughness and regeneration have been halting most of the progress on the surgeries. We'll have to look through Garaki's notes to make any real progress on that front. As for the chaos energy restoration, we've been a bit more successful. Kiba will have been restored. When conscious, she has control over her body again, but it's limited, and she's still in an extraordinary amount of pain. Not to mention the majority of her memories are either incomplete or missing altogether. TCH. And we're sure Aries' quirk won't work on her? Izuku asked. Not by itself. Kiba's basically undead at this point, and Aries' quirk won't have any effect. Dr. Hata explained once again. Sniff. Sniff. Both of them stopped when they noticed that Kiba was sniffing the air. Daddy. Suddenly Kiba's hand started reaching around in Izuku's direction, causing his eyes to go wide. Immediately, Izuku went to grab his daughter's hand, but Hata stopped him by grabbing his arm, causing Izuku to look up at the man with surprise and anger. What are you doing? She will rip off your hand. Dr. Hata told him. Computer, increase the dosage. The machines pumped more stuff into Kiba, slowly putting her back into a completely still state. All the while Kiba reached around for Izuku, getting progressively more upset as she didn't find him. Hata could feel Izuku's arm fighting his own, and he knew if he let go then his boss would lose a hand, if not an arm. D-Daddy. Kiba sniffled as she went still once more, tears leaking from her eyes. Hata let go, and Izuku's hand immediately shot over to his daughter's. I'm here, Kiba. I'm here, Izuku said through his own tears. His legs collapsed on him, leaving him on his knees, as he cried into his daughter's hand. I'm so sorry. Dr. Hata gave him a sympathetic look and kneeled down to give him a comforting pat on the back. We'll fix her, sir. I swear. Their loss at the Midoriya Foundation sent waves throughout the MLA. They'd lost not only thousands of their fellow members, but also their leader and the descendant of Destro himself. Many were disheartened and left the organization altogether, but many more were motivated, determined not to let this stop their ambition. And so, with heavy hearts, they were forced to replace their leader with a new council of powerful members of the organizations. These 6 leaders were now in the main building in their city, sitting at a round table. Sunhosha, a man who appeared to be a black skeleton, surrounded by a weird green casing. In actuality, that weird green stuff was his flesh, which was made see-through due to the radiation quirk he possessed. He wore a black business suit. Rayon Hokori, a 10-foot-tall lion man, wearing red robes. He also had a bunch of women surrounding him, and one on his lap. Borozagupu, a man who wore a large wooden mask with 2 long upward-facing horns, and his blue eyes glowed from the eye holes. He wore a long body covering white and brown, gold-trimmed cape, and only his gray-gloved hands could be seen peeking out of it. Masuda Yoso, the youngest out of everyone there, was a woman with black hair, tied into a bun, who wore red and black armor. Hibiju was a woman who had the upper half a beautiful human woman and the bottom half of a snake, with pure white scales. She had pure white hair and donned a very old-fashioned white and red Miko-like garb. Lastly, there was a man with gray skin and white hair in a business suit. This was Noishimu. Well then, I think it's time we properly started, Masuda said. First off, Midoriya, I say we abandon the idea of attacking him directly from now on. It's simply not worth it. Agreed, said Sun, Borozu, Hibi, and Nohi. Oh, we're just going to let him get away with making a mockery out of us. Rayon lightly objected. What will that do to morale? Which, may I remind you, is already at rock bottom. And we can't afford any more deserters. I didn't say we'd leave him alone completely, Masuda said. We definitely need to get our hands on his technology. We'll need it to both increase our own power and increase our funding after Detnerat fell. Speaking of which, do any of you have any plans on how to help with that massive hole in our budget? I'm way ahead of you. My people in the red light district have increased their efforts tenfold, Rayon said before laughing. Ugh. Many members of the council shook their heads. Well, I doubt any of us can truly replace Destro's financial contributions, so we'll have to decrease our spending for the time being, Hebe said. I agree we should focus our efforts on pilfering Midoriya's technology. With that, we can rebuild ourselves stronger. So Midoriya made us weaker, and now he'll make us stronger. Sen chuckled. How poetic. Speaking of poetic, I recently got some interesting notes from Dr. Garaki. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX house, and opened it, only to have her eyes widen in horror at what she saw. On the ground were her parents, dead, their bodies being eaten by a young, blonde-haired girl in a purple dress, that being her younger sister, Kara. While she was frozen in shock and fear, her sister seemed to have heard her. She stood up and turned around, revealing the 7-star Dragon Ball lodged in her forehead. Kara smiled with her blood-covered lips. "Big sis, welcome home." XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX walked up to a massive old-fashioned Japanese sliding door. "Are you done yet?" A few moments later, the door slid open, revealing another ninja. The man donned metal armor, with blades all over it, namely its legs, wrist, and shoulders. He also wore a black cape and a metal helmet with 3 spikes arranged in a trident-like fashion on top. "It is rude to interrupt a man in mourning. Scorpion, our men are wondering what you're planning to do now that your daughter has been killed," Scorpion said. "If you do not make your stance clear, the more foolish among them may begin to think you're frightened by Midoriya." So be it," the man said as he and Scorpion started walking away from the room. "I will let them know the Shredder will not take this lying down. Midoriya will feel the full wrath of the foot. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX alleyway, with a bottle in his hand. How dare they fire me? I'll kill them. I'll kill them all. Oh, said a deep voice. Huh. The man looked up and saw Sin Shunran standing over him. Huh? What do you want? That's what I wanted to ask you, Sin said with a smirk. Do you hate this world? Do you want to hurt it? Make it bleed? If so, then I may have an offer for you. Hee hee. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX large pot. The emerald is powerful, but so long as we don't use it to blow up a city, they won't be able to track its use, Cooler answered. So even our experimental use of the emerald won't allow them to track it from all the way back in Japan. Now quit bothering me and go to your job. Oh, I have. I've already recruited various new promising members to our organization, but they will need a bit of convincing in order to properly cow them in. Frost said. Cooler sighed. Fine, show them the new models. That should keep them complacent. Hopefully. If not, I'll deal with them. Frost shrugged as he started walking out. Just make sure to keep your guard up, cousin. Even with that emerald, all for one still lost. I am aware, and I have no intention of repeating his mistakes, Cooler said. Once this new creation is finished, my new reign will begin. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX staring at a vial of remnant they kept in a special room. Astounding! The door opened, and in stepped another man, with golden blonde hair and bare ears. "I knew I'd find you here, Murasaki. Isn't it amazing, Kin?" Murasaki said, turning around to face his companion and holding up the vial. "This right here is a liquidized consciousness, a soul made tangible. We've proved that the soul exists. Think about what we could do with this." Kin shook his head. "Murasaki, you know we're not supposed to mess with that stuff. We don't have clearance. You lucky there's so lax here. Otherwise you'd be fired just for touching it. Come now, Kin. Don't you want to explore more of this? We could control life itself. Murasaki said, always so ambitious. Kin sighed as he turned around to leave. Just put it back, lest your grand ambitions leave you fired. As Kin left, Murasaki looked down at the vial. One day I will master this. One day. Dude, we should not be here, said a blue-haired young man to a black-haired on. The two of them were both wandering the ruins of the city where the fight against One for All had taken place. Come on, man. This place is prime for looting, and I intend to get the best of the goods before anyone else does, the black-haired man said to his partner. And then they stumbled across it. The absolutely massive crater. Whoa, it's hard to believe that people really made this, the black-haired man said. Something's off about this place, the blue-haired man said as he stared into the crater. It gives me the creeps. Oh, come on, it's just whole dude, the black-haired man said. And then the earth started to shake. Huh. The black-haired man fell on his ass as the ground trembled. Suddenly, a black orb formed in the center of the crater, and dark energy rippled out of it. Then the black orb started to shift and change until it took a new form. The form of the corrupted, All for One. All villains must die. All for One said, his voice not sounding like this voice. Instead, it sounded like the voice of countless people, all absolutely enraged. All for One must pay. Then, All for One turned and immediately spotted the two men. Villains. The seemingly resurrected villain raised his arm at the two of them, and both wind and lightning started swirling around his arm. Both men got up and ran in the opposite direction. But it was pointless. They were both already dead. Crack 'em. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. What? Garaki's dead? Izuku shouted out in shock. Giza was giving Izuku a report, and nothing he had to say was good news. It appears that he killed himself in captivity. I think he knew we were going to force information out of him one way or another. Damn it, Izuku said, slamming his fist onto his desk. Even after he's defeated, that man is determined to drive me insane. Growling. Fine. We'll just have to focus on his notes. Also, there seems to have been a disturbance in the ruins, Giza said. There was a massive explosion of an unknown cause. Just send someone to investigate it. Hopefully it's nothing big. Izuku sighed. 2 weeks later, things with Kiba had progressed somewhat smoothly, if slower than they would like. And finally, after countless hours poring over notes, making new machines and devices, and seemingly endless surgery, Kiba was now in a state where she could stay conscious and receive visitors. How are you feeling? Izuku asked his daughter as he sat by her bedside. I'm okay, Daddy, Kiba said. In truth, her body felt super hard to move with, and she still got headaches from time to time, but compared to before she was amazing right now, and she didn't want to worry Izuku. Hug. Izuku smiled. Of course. He immediately leaned in and embraced his daughter, and Kiba leaned into his embrace. Unfortunately, she couldn't hug him back, because even in this severely weakened state, she could still easily hurt Izuku. I'm so sorry you had to go through all that. I can't believe how negligent I was. Izuku apologized. I honestly don't deserve you. Don't say that, Daddy, Kiba said with a pout. She honestly didn't even remember how she got taken, or even what led up to it, but she was sure it wasn't his fault. I'm the one who doesn't deserve you. Oh, Kiba, Izuku said as he hugged her tighter. Once you get better, let's go out. Just you and me. We can go anywhere you want. Can we take the others? Kiba asked. Izuku smiled. Of course we can. I'm sure they'd be delighted. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Kiba. Fuku sobbed into Kiba's chest while hugging her tightly. I was so scared. There, Fuku, Kiba assured her, with a sad smile on her face. Let it all out. Promise me you'll never get captured again. Fuku yelled through her tears. Promise me. I mean, it's not like I wanted to get captured. Kiba chuckled, but once she saw Fuku's teary-eyed pout, she caved. All right, I promise. But first, you have to give yourself a head pat since I can't right now. Huh? Why you can't be serious? Fuku pouted. I'm super serious, Kiba said with as much of a serious look as she could muster, which wasn't very effective considering that she didn't have full control over her facial muscles, so it was half-baked at most. But Fuku felt all the same. Fine. Fuku sighed, before bringing her hand to her head and awkwardly patting it. There, are you happy? Of course. Kiba giggled. Thank you, my dearest little sister. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Good to see that you're getting better. Oh, hey you. Kiba said awkwardly in response, trying to remember who this was. Lee's eyes widened. Wait a minute. Do you not remember me? Sorry, a lot of my memories are missing. Kiba apologized, blushing with embarrassment. I don't seem to have any memory of you. Le looked a little offended for a second, before just sighing. Well, it's not like we knew each other very long. Just have to make sure you remember this time around. Name's Leiden, but call me Lo. We fought together on Monstra, which is why I need to apologize for letting you get kidnapped. I doubt you. Let me get kidnapped, Kiba told him. But if you really want to make it up to me, could you tell me what happened before I got kidnapped? I guess, Le said, not looking all too eager. Some big-shot villains attacked us, and we had to fight a really strong guy. Like, super strong. Our attacks were doing almost nothing to him. But you were pretty much the only person who could hold him back. Thanks to you, we managed to hold him off long enough for AKA to take control of another villain, distract him, and let me teleport them a couple 100 feet into the air. So yeah, we kicked ass. But then another villain came in, sucker beamed you and were weakened, and started kicking our ass. And in the struggle, another villain snuck in and took you. I see. Kiba took a second to take all that in. A shame that I let my guard down, but at the very least I fought valiantly until the end. And no one else got hurt. You seem to be taking this all pretty well, Le noted, a bit weirded out by how not upset she seemed by this all. Well, I can't remember most of the terrible things that I'm told happened to me, Kiba pointed out, cringing a bit. Although I still remember some horrible, horrible pain. But most of it's just a blank for me. I'm just glad no one else got hurt. And now that you tell me that I actually helped out a whole lot, I'm feeling even better. Lu just looked at her, with a bewildered expression, taking a few minutes to try and process what Kiba said before shaking his head clear and shrugging it off. Well, as long as you're happy. When you get better, let's have another fight. I've been practicing, and I heard you have new powers. So let's see who's improved the most. As Le left, Kiba thought about that offer and looked down at her hands. I'm not sure that's a good idea. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Kiba frowned. I thought so. I've never seen anything like this before, Kyoku explained. It's like trying to put together a broken pot. But some pieces are so broken you can't touch them without breaking them more, and some pieces are just missing altogether. Understandable as that was, I'd appreciate it if you didn't compare my mind to a broken pot, Kiba asked her. But thank you for trying. And don't look so upset. It ruins your cute little face. Humph. Kyoku pouted. I'm not cute. Kiba giggled. Now, no lying to the queen. Eri pouted, as she took her hands off Kiba with a very upset expression. So my quirk really doesn't work on you anymore. It's rather ironic how I called myself a vampire queen, and now I really am undead. Kiba chuckled. That sick doctor had an interesting sense of humor at least. Another evil doctor, Eri said under her breath, shuddering a bit. They're always the worst. Agreed. Between him and that overhaul guy, I wonder who's worse. Kiba wondered. I don't really want to think about it, Eri said. Right? Sorry, that was foolish of me, Kiba said, before giving Eri a big smile. I should be thanking you first of all. Without you, I'd still be that monster. I didn't really do anything, Eri said. They're just using my power with those fractals. They're not even taking blood from me anymore. It's still pretty enviable. Not many people can bless the world just by existing. Kiba half teased with a smile. You really are a gift from the heavens, my dear sister. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX into the room. You were the cat girl that saved me, right? Kiba asked as she looked at Sori with vague familiarity. And the same one that broke into our forest and caused all that panic. Oh man, is that the only memory you have of me? Sori said, slouching as she made a disheartened expression. That blows. Unfortunately, only my more important memories are able to be recovered. So if we didn't have a very intimate moment together, I'll remember you less. Kiba explained. My apologies. No, that's my fault. Guess that means I just have to make some better memories with you, Lady K. Sori said, getting back into her usual high spirits. How about we go hunting after this? Kiba actually laughed. Well, you certainly seem like an amusing person, although I don't think I should go hunting. I'm not sure the forest could handle it. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. There had been a bit of wait after sorry, but Kiba knew she wasn't done with her visitors yet. Pretty much everyone in the Foundation had paid her a visit. All of them except for one, technically two people that she knew had to come. The door opened up, and Fu came in. Hey, don't hate me. Why are you so late? Kiba asked, crossing her arms and pouting at her oldest companion. Sorry, I wanted to go last because I knew we'd be here for a while. Fu lied. I suppose that makes sense. Kiba accepted. Now come here. I wish to embrace you. Seems like your vocab hasn't suffered, Fu noted, as he came over to Kiba, crawling onto her bed and hugging her. Then Kiba hugged him back, breaking his ribs and spine, and causing Fu's blood and internal organs to come spilling out of his mouth. Welcome back, sis, Fu thought. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Hello, my loyal minions, Kiba said to the camera, doing the best pose she could in her bed. Lady Kiba, she's back. Oh my God, what happened? I'm sure you must have all missed me dearly. And I am proud of your patience and honored by your concern, Kiba said dramatically. I unfortunately came down with an unknown illness that rendered me unable to make videos for quite some time. But now I've recovered enough to make this announcement. Unknown illness? Can't Midoriya Tech cure anything? Or use that one girl's quirk? Poor Lady Kiba. You should have told us, Lady Kiba, we'd have sent you get-well gifts. Yeah, why didn't anyone know about this? Gee, some of you guys are so invasive. She and her family have the right to privacy, you know. Unfortunately, I'm not at 100% yet, Kiba said with a sigh. So I won't be able to produce normal videos for a while longer. But I trust all of you to remain patient until I recover. I know it will be hard, but I assure you will be rewarded. And feel free to watch my siblings in the meantime. Like Knees. Hey, Knees timidly from behind the camera. With that said, I bid you all farewell for now. Wow, Himiko gasped as she looked down at her cup of blood. She was sitting in the cafeteria with everyone else, enjoying a wonderful stack of French toast and a cup of blood. We heard you like to drink blood. We included it with your meal, Shiruku said, as she ate her own meal. A brain. Well, start eating, otherwise your food will get cold. Can I really drink this? Himiko asked as she looked over the cup, her mouth watering as the metallic smell of the blood hit her nose. No one's gonna get mad at me, right? Not at all. Just look at what I'm eating, Shiruku said as she cut up the brain and used her fork to lift it into her mouth. Himiko still looked a little baffled, but she quickly got over it and started gulping down the blood. Oh, this is so good. This place has to be heaven. Once the cup was drained, Himiko moved on to her actual meal, and her eyes went wide with wonder. This confirms it. I'm in heaven. Heaven. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Amazing. Himiko gushed as she twirled around in front of a mirror in her brand new outfit. She had on a simple red and green outfit, with a skirt and frilly top, as well as red shoes. And her hair was tied up in a ponytail. I look so pretty. And that's just the start, Shiruku said, with a smug look on her face. This was just what we could do on short notice. Our fashion power goes far beyond this. Sheena added, looking just as smug, although she only helped with the hair. In other words, this was just the opening act. Now prepare for the main show, Shiruku shouted. It's been a while since we got a new family member, so I think a new round of dress-up is in order. Yeah, Himiko had never played dress-up before, but they seemed too excited about it, and she liked looking pretty, so why not go along? Seemed like fun. XXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Himiko happily hummed as she walked over to her room, with boxes of clothes in her arms. Dress-up had been fun, and the girl talk during it only enhanced the experience. She couldn't remember the last time she could really talk with others so freely about things from fashion to cute things to bloody carnage. So far today had been the best day ever. And then she tripped. Whoa! Himiko fell forward, and the boxes started to spill out of her arms. But before she or any of her new clothes could hit the floor, they were all caught by black tendrils. Careful, Fu said, as he used Kyosei to get Himiko back on her feet while taking the boxes. Here, let me help. Where are you going? Thanks. Everyone here is so nice, Himiko noted. It's Susa much better than my old home. Yeah, that's kind of the point, Fu said. Dad works hard to make sure everyone here is as happy as can be, even when it seems like everyone else tries to make that hard for him. Mr. Midoriya, he's super amazing, right? Himiko asked with stars in her eyes. He's in charge of this whole amazing place, and he's super nice. No one's denying that. Anyway, let's get this to your room. Fu said, XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX forest at top speed. "There you are," Sori shouted as she found a deer, before quickly cutting its head off with her claws. "Awesome," Himiko cheered as they came to a halt. Again. "Sorry, kid. We gotta deal with this one first," Sori said as she lifted up the deer corpse. "Don't want all the blood getting on the ground and the meat going bad, do ya?" Himiko said, getting off Sori so they could deal with the deer. The young blonde watched with zeal as Sori drained its blood before skinning it and cutting it up into smaller parts. "Cool," Himiko cooed. "You're so cool, Sori. How'd you learn to do all that?" "The same way most people do manga," Sori said proudly. "If you can learn anything by watching YouTube and reading manga, it's a real life hack." Meanwhile, back in Izuka's office, Izuka suddenly got a headache, and he didn't know why. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. So one time, Kin was 4 arms, and he got stuck in a hole, and he couldn't turn back for 8 whole minutes, Kay said. "And so I found him, and I said, 'Need a hand?'" "Baitum Tish," Himiko applauded. She was currently acting as an audience for Kay's stand-up routine. Of course, she didn't find any of her jokes funny in the slightest, but she enjoyed the sheer passion and energy Kay brought. She was just filled with so much life. So she'd sit through some bad jokes if only to watch and encourage someone so adorably lively. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX the karaoke machine in Himiko's room. Like a flood of pain, Yaba continued, pouring down on me. And it will not let up until the end is here. And it will come. Thought the darkest day. In my final hour. And it will never rest until the clouds are clear. Until it finds my dreams and disappears. Pairs, ppp pairs. My dreams disappear. And with that, the song ended. That was amazing. I always wanted to do karaoke, but didn't know it'd be this much fun. Himiko cheered. I know, right? And my sisters said they didn't want to do it because we can't sing. You don't need to be good at singing to enjoy karaoke. Yaba stated confidently. Now let's do another one. The only thing I know for real this time. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX ran through the backyard as fast as she could, jumping and ducking and bobbing and weaving through water blasts, not letting a single one hit her, while she carried her own water gun. Schwupp! Lou teleported in front of her, with a cocky smirk on his face, and a water gun aimed right at her face. Eat this. Whoa! Himiko fell onto her back, letting the water shot fly over her, and blasting Lou in the face with her own water gun at the same time. Huh! Lou got a face full of water that sent him stumbling back, and let Himiko get back up and run away. Huh! Nice triac. Himiko was suddenly blasted by water from above, as Ken flew in the air as Stinkfly, and shot down at everyone from above. Ah-ha-ha. Good luck hitting me all the way up here, suckers. Ken taunted, before he then got nailed by 3 water balloons, one of them hitting him right in the face. Gah! Don't get cocky, fuck face. Yaba shouted as she and Inu threw water balloons up at Ken from the ground. Splash! Oh! The sisters cried out, as Otako laid fire, or rather water, on them, with his super soaker minigun, only to get interrupted, as Himiko and AKA shot water right at his face. Huh! Nice! AKA cheered. And then, everyone stopped, when a shadow appeared, and flew over everyone. They all looked up and saw Yami, flying on top of a griffin. And there were also 4 other griffins, holding up a giant cluster of water balloons, about the size of a house. No mercy, Yami said simply, as he commanded the Grimm to release the balloons, letting them fall down like rain. Oh crap, everyone run! Ken shouted as he and everyone else tried to get away, but it was far too late, as the balloons fell on them like rain, exploding and flooding the entire area with water. Needless to say, Yami was considered the winner of this game. It seems like the girl has taken to the foundation rather well, Giza said, reporting to Izuku on Himiko's behavior and recent activities. She seems to have gotten over her parents abandoning her rather quickly, likely because she seems to have been expecting it, and as such has had no issue in dealing with her new environment. If anything, she's thriving. She gets along with many of the other children and is extremely lively and energetic. I don't think she stopped smiling a single time today. It's almost hard to believe that she was once a villain. Izuku sighed. Almost. While for the most part, Himiko was a very lovely individual, her obsession with blood and gore could be very off-putting to most people. Especially because, unlike Kiba or Shiroku, she didn't technically need to consume blood or body parts. The keyword being technically, because the way her brain was wired gave her a kind of addiction to blood, and going without it for long periods of time could trigger a kind of withdrawal in her. Well, we shouldn't have to worry about her going down that path again now that she's here, Izuku said. I wish I could be this at ease about Tenko. Giza nodded. The boy has yet to leave his room, and all he does in there is eat, sleep, and watch hero fights on the news. The loss of his family seems to have sent the young boy down the path of heartache and confusion. Do you think he's ready for me to talk to him? Izuku asked. I'd say so, Giza confirmed. In fact, I would advise you to do that sooner than later, before you become too busy. Izuku, Himiko shouted as she slammed the door open and ran into Izuku's office, soaking wet. Izuku got up, knowing what was coming. Himiko tackled Izuku and wrapped her arms around him. I had so much fun. Izuku smiled. I'm glad you did. I'm sure everyone else had fun too. Now let's go get you changed before you catch a cold. We have to be quick because dinner could be done at any moment. Yet another good day at the Midoriya Foundation. The type of days that should be the norm. Yami. Amai immediately hugged Yami as soon as she arrived at the foundation. With All for One and Destro dead, Kirojiri in prison, and the foundation being mostly safe from portals and the like, Izuku relaxed the ban on traveling in and out of the foundation a bit. Amai could come in and out so long as the trip was supervised by one of his bodyguards. Yami hugged back, happy to see the girl in person again after so long. Amai, thank you. I need your help. You needed my candies, right? Amai asked, opening up her bag to reveal a ton of candies, all of different colors. I got them right here. But what did you need all these for? Creating life, Yami answered. Huh. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX a small lake. Except this lake wasn't filled with water. It was filled with Yami's grim batter. Just a massive pit of dark bubbling ooze. Creation pit. Use it to make a more powerful grim. Yami explained as he started taking stuff out of his backpack. First, there was the chaos heart still in its container. Then another container with a brain in it. After that were some vials of blood. And lastly were a bunch of fractals. I'm creating the most powerful grim. A living one. Yami explained as he threw all the fractals into the lake. You candies have emotions in them. Important for creating life. Oh, that makes sense. Amai said, looking down at her candies before looking at Yami. But why do you want to make life? Adds power. Yami explained as he uncorked the blood vials and dumped them into the lake. When people want to protect, they surpass limits. Become more powerful than they should. A soul is very, very powerful. I never thought about it like that, Amai said thoughtfully, before smiling and dumping the candies in the lake. All right, let's do this. Let's make the most powerful grim. Yami nodded and smiled a bit. Thank you. He then quickly dumped the brain into the lake, before moving on to the last item. The chaos heart. Yami opened its container and tossed it into the lake. A moment later, the process began. The lake began to move. The goo swirling around in a circular fashion. Slowly at first, but it was getting faster and faster until a whirlpool formed, focusing all the goo into the center of the lake. Quickly the lake started to drain, as everyone was focused into the center. About a minute later, the process was done. The lake had completely drained, leaving only a black egg, about the size of a child, in the center. Did it work? Amai asked. A griffin came in and grabbed the egg, bringing it to the two of them. Yami put his hand on the egg. She's forming. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX he and Giza sat in his office. I plan to start an information and subterfuge division, and I want you to be in charge of it. That's quite a task, Giza said, taking the information calmly as he sipped his tea. But if I'm in charge, then will I be able to use them for my own needs? I trust you enough, so yes. Izuku agreed. And I have a feeling our interests align enough that anything you want to do for yourself will also benefit me. Most likely, Giza confirmed. However, I would like to know how you plan on filling the ranks of this division. For such a division to work, we must be very careful with the selection and training of its members. Of course, I will do all I can, but even I can only do so much. Not to mention none of them should be well known to any degree. I have that covered, Izuku said, pulling out a bunch of files and laying them on the table. On top of some androids to help fill out the rankings, I've also initiated Project Rebirth. Project Rebirth? Giza asked. Some time ago, my scientist created a very interesting fractal, Izuku explained. Its quirk was dubbed Reshuffle. It's basically a respin button on the wheel of life. When activated, it will alter the user's looks, quirks, gender, and even personality to something completely random. The limit being, it must be something that person's parents could have produced. It'd be like turning into the brother or sister you never had. And although it can be used to change a person's quirk or give a quirk to the quirkless, unfortunately, it just changes too much about a person. With personality and behavior changes, it could turn you into an almost completely different person, with the only connection to your old self being your memories and age. Which is why I've restricted its use to certain chosen individuals. People who've had it so bad, they desire death. Or in this case, a restart. These individuals are thankful and loyal to me. And thanks to that fractal, we've altered their bodies and minds to suit our needs perfectly. I see. Not to mention that since they're practically new people, they won't have any history that can be looked into. Giza pointed out. At least none that isn't fabricated by us. That's right. They're almost perfect. All they need is training, Izuku said. And thankfully, not only are their quirks perfectly suited for their jobs, but we've also altered their very natures to be more hard-working and dedicated. So I assure you training them won't be too hard. Well, you've certainly thought this thought. Giza smiled, liking this idea more and more. But what do you plan on naming this new division? I leave that to you, Izuku said. Very well. How about the hand? Giza chuckled. Oh yes, the hand will work quite well. How long do you think it'll take to get them into shape? Izuku asked. If they're as easy to train as you imply, then perhaps half a year would be the best I could offer. Giza estimated. That's quite a while. Do you think any of our technology could expedite the process? Izuku asked. I already took that into account. Half a year is my best estimate. Giza said. I apologize, but I can't compromise on this. I would rather do everything myself than trust in half-trained and inadequate subordinates. I understand. In that case, take all the time you need. Izuku said. I still need you for other things, so I'll just have to be patient. Although the androids you shouldn't have to train, so we can at least use them. I'll judge that for myself, Giza said. Knock knock knock. Mr. Midoriya, I have the papers for the new kids we'll be receiving. Chol said from the other side of the door. All right. Giza, you're dismissed. Izuku said. Chol, come in. Giza exited the room, as Chol entered, carrying some files in her arms. Here you are, sir, Chol said, giving Izuku files for 5 new children. Izuku looked over the files. It's been a while. The first kid was a 9-year-old boy named Oki. He had black skin and red and teal eyes, along with light green hair. But none of that was the bizarre part of him. That would be the fact that his body was covered in mouths. Along with the one on his face, he had mouths on his hands, elbows, shoulders, the back of his neck, the center of his back, one on his stomach, 2 on his knees, and 1 on each foot. This naturally had to do with his quirk. Glutton. Each mouth can eat pretty much anything and store it inside of Oki, in some kind of pocket dimension. Oki can also blast them out of these mouths, acting pretty much like feedback. However, unlike feedback, Oki's mouths can consume more than energy. Solids, liquids, and gases could also be eaten and spat out. To top all this off, the mouths had incredible sucking and blowing power, being able to spit out seeds at speeds that made them act like bullets. Lastly, every mouth could also stretch and grow to a limited extent. As for what is dangerous, that was simple. It was sentient. Glutton had a mind of its own, and it could be seen as an eyeball that could move from mouth to mouth on Oki's body. Naturally, being a sentient quirk that revolves around eating, Glutton desired to eat everything, people included. Fortunately, Oki was very much against that idea, but his control over his own body seemed to slip whenever he got hungry, causing Glutton to puppet him around and go on an eating spree. And considering that Oki could eat more than Fu before being satisfied, it was clear that Oki should be classified as an OPC. It appears that even when not hungry, Glutton would attempt to eat everything it could get its mouths on, meaning those would need to be covered. He'd also try to convince Oki to eat everything, meaning those coverings would need to be soundproof. Next up was a young girl with pure white hair, pale skin, and bug wings on her back. It looked like she had on some kind of mosquito head hat, but that was actually part of her head. Her nails were also black and sharp as a blade. This girl was Kanobaga, 7 years old. As one could guess, her quirk was called Mosquito Queen. It's basically the same thing as Shiroku's quirk, but with mosquitoes instead of spiders. She could even control mosquitoes like Shiroku could with spiders. And much like Shiroku, her food requirements are where the issues lay. She needed to drink blood, which was pretty par for the course for a mosquito. Unfortunately, given her size, she needed to drink almost an entire person a day. With this kind of feeding requirement, her being labeled as an OPC was a given. After her was a trio of siblings that had been rescued from quirk breeders. First was the oldest, Odo, a 9-year-old boy with short black hair. His quirk was called Sonic Scream. It was similar to Present Mix's quirk as it allowed him to unleash a powerful and destructive blast of sound from his mouth. However, his quirk had two major differences. Odo's quirk was way stronger, and it couldn't be turned off. Every time Odo made the slightest noise from his mouth, his quirk would activate, turning even a whisper into a building-busting blast. This unfortunately meant the boy had to wear a muzzle, as the risk of him accidentally making a noise and blowing up everything around him was too great. After him was his younger sister, an 8-year-old girl, Ko. She had straight black hair that went down to her shoulders and was rather small for her age. Her quirk was called Ear Bleed. Anytime she spoke, anyone who could hear her voice would be in immense pain. The louder her voice, the more intense the pain. Lastly, there was the youngest member, Kuki. He looked like his brother, but with slightly longer hair and a far smaller body. He was also in a wheelchair. This was because of his quirk, Amp. Any noise that came from his body would be considerably amplified into a blast of sound. Even just the sound of him walking could destroy everything around him. Although for whatever reason, this didn't include sounds made from his mouth, opposite to his brother. While hopefully, none of them cause any trouble, Izuku said as he finished reading over the files. Joel, are their rooms ready? Of course, sir. All 6 rooms are ready. Joel answered. 6? Izuku questioned. Ah yes, thanks to Yami. We'll have another child added to the roster shortly, Joel revealed. One that's bound to be very, very interesting. Well, this is unusual, Fu said to himself. The undead child was carrying a creature of raw meat, and as he was looking for a table to sit down and eat at when he spotted something strange. A mountain of food, even larger than his, was splayed out on a table, and a child he didn't recognize was eating away at it like his life depended on it. Must be one of the new kids that came in yesterday, Fu thought. He took a closer look at the kid's face, and he looked troubled. I should talk to him, Fu thought. And so he used Kyodon to make tendrils come out of his mouth, and then dumped the whole crate of meat into his mouth, using Kyodon to contort and stretch his body, to allow the meat to travel into his stomach all at once. All right, time to. How the hell did you do that? Oki asked. His sped-up eating had caught his attention. Quirks, Fu said simply. Crazy, huh? Yeah, Oki said, looking down at the clamps covering the mouths on his body. Crazy. Anyway, I have to get back to eating. Fu looked at the pile of food and found that it was very roughly cooked. Some of them were even burnt, and none of them looked like they were cooked with any amount of care. It seems that he has to eat his food cooked unlike me. So he had to cook all that before he could eat. Sounds like a pain. I should probably help the poor kid. Somehow. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Kay was having another good day. After having some lunch, she skipped back to her room to watch some TV. She opened the door and... splash. The moment she opened the door, an unforeseen bucket of water spilled onto her head, dousing her. Huh. Kay looked down at her now soaking wet body in confusion. "Ah-ha-ha," sounded a laugh track from behind her. Kay turned around and saw one of the new arrivals, Ko, standing behind her with her phone in her hand and a smug look on her face. "You're that new girl, Ko, right?" Kay asked, not sounding all too upset. Ko nodded, looking a little surprised at how not upset she was. "And you must have been the one who did this." Kay laughed. "Nice one. I didn't expect that at all." Ko looked even more confused, but quickly got over it and just smiled, before quickly typing something into her phone, which then spoke using text-to-speech. "Thanks. You're welcome," Kay said. "Now could you help me dry off? I don't want to miss my show. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. All right, time to get to work," Izuku said as he got to his desk. He sat down on his chair, and it immediately falls apart, causing him to land, but first on the floor. "Ah-ha-ha," played the laugh track, as Izuku spotted Ko under his desk, looking all too proud of herself. Izuku just smiled and shook his head. "Can I please have the screws back, please?" Ko comes out from under the desk and hands him the screws, before running off, to cause more mischief. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. "You know, if you just didn't poop, you'd be perfect," Yonda said to a spur as she finished cleaning her litter box. "All right, now with that done, time to take a shower." After getting undressed and grabbing her towel, Yonda entered her bathroom and quickly got into the bathtub before turning on the water. And then she was immediately hit by cold water splashing onto her, just how she wanted it. "Ah, nothing like a good shower to wipe away the filth," Yonda smirked. "And fortunately, I enjoy my cold showers." "Ko, damn it, she found me," Ko thought from her hiding space in the bathroom closet. The girl had been hiding out there after messing with Yonda's shower by turning off the hot water. She tried to just not think in order to hide from Yonda and not give herself away, but in hindsight, that was a really dumb idea. "If you wanted to get my attention so badly, then you could have just asked," Yonda said. "I'd love to have a chat with you, and I'm sure you are dying to speak to someone directly." "Well, you're not wrong," Ko thought. "Good. Now just wait a couple of minutes for me to finish my shower," Yonda said. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Today had left a rather good first impression on Ko. Sure, her pranks haven't gotten the expected reaction, but it's not like the reactions she did get were bad by any means. Plus, Yonda did give her some tips on who to prank and how, so she knew what she had to do now. Speaking of Yonda, that was a treat. Being able to talk to someone without attempting sign language or using text-to-speech on her phone. And Yonda herself was a delight, even if she was very smug. She'd find a way to prank her someday. Overall, a pretty great day. As Ko was ruminating on her day with a smile on her face, she walked past the training room and spotted her older brother practicing hand-to-hand combat on a training dummy. Ko scowled. Her day just got a little bit worse. She quickly marched away and didn't look back. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. "So I was thinking that a black and white suit would look good on Odo," Kano suggested, as she drew a design. She and Shiroku were currently working on designs for hero costumes for everyone in the house. Everyone that wanted to be a hero, that is. Quickly after meeting, Kano and Shiroku hit it off, which surprised Kano considering she was horribly afraid of spiders. But Shiroku's sense of fashion overshadowed her spideriness, even if Kano still found herself flinching every time she got too close. "I like that idea. I'm thinking of a rather bold white along his costume. Big lines and jagged bolts," Shiroku suggested. "And maybe a head ornament to make the top look less plain. Nothing too garish, just something to break up the black." Speaking of looking less plain, we need something to add to the silhouette. Right now it's too basic. Kano mused. "I'm thinking of those kinds of underarm gliders. They don't have to actually do anything, but I'd add to the aesthetic. They'd also look good while he uses his quirk." "Oh, I like that very much." Shiroku grinned from ear to ear. "I have a feeling you and I will work together for a long, long time." Yami hadn't left his room all day, and Amai had stayed there with him, having gotten permission to sleep over. The reason was obvious. They were waiting for the egg to hatch. It's not like they'd just been looking at the egg all day. The two of them watched TV, played video games, ate snacks, played videos, and played cards, before going back to play more video games. Right now the two of them were playing the latest Call of Duty, Zombies mode. "I'm out of ammo," Yami said. "I got you." Amai quickly threw some ammo to Yami. "Always go for the head." Conserves ammo. Easy to say, Yami said as he continued playing. Crack. Both of them froze, as they heard a cracking sound coming from the egg, which was leaning up against the wall. The two of them immediately looked over to the egg and saw that there was indeed a crack, from which black liquid, similar to grim goop but more watery, leaked out. Crack. Crack, crack. More and more cracks appeared in the egg until a whole hand popped out of the egg. Yami quickly got up and tore the egg open, flooding the area around it with black liquid and allowing a girl to drop out onto the floor. The girl looked exactly like Yami, or rather a female version of him, with hair going down to her back. Huh. The girl quickly sprung to her feet in a panic, only to fall back onto her butt. Calm, Yami ordered, and immediately, the girl's movements became less panicked and more confused. She looked up at her creator, her eyes brimming with curiosity. Creator. Yami nodded. You understand? Information going into your brain. The creation took a second to process all the information that was already in her brain. She was created by Yami to help fight against evil. She knows Japanese and can read and write. Welcome to the world, Yami said, as Amai handed him a blanket, which he wrapped his new creation in. Your name is Seikyo. You are my greatest creation. Greatest creation, Seikyo repeated as she looked down at herself. And the first thing she ever felt, past the initial confusion of her birth, was a great sense of responsibility. XXXXXXXXXXXXX. All right, let's get this started, Futaba said as she looked at a computer. The first place Yami had taken his new creation was to Izuku, who then took her to the lab. Izuku, Yami, Futaba, and Amai were all looking down at Seikyo in her test chamber from an upper observation chamber. Seikyo, please feel free to use your power in whatever way you can, Futaba said. Seikyo, now in a basic white dress, looked down at her hands. Powers. She didn't know exactly what her so-called powers were, but she had a feeling it was connected to this weird energy she felt around her. Following her instincts, she tensed her hands, and that energy started gathering in her hands, becoming visible and turning into black orbs of energy. She then aimed her palms at the wall and pushed it forward. PWM. Black lasers blasted the wall, although they didn't do any damage. Interesting, Futaba said as she looked at the readings on her computer. She's gathering the same negative energy that Yami uses and forming it into an energy blast. I wonder. Hey Seikyo, try creating a grim like Yami does. Just a small one-line mini Deathstalker. Seikyo nodded and looked back down at her hands. Once again she centered all of the energy she could into one of her hands, but this time instead of an energy orb, it turned into a Deathstalker. Curious, she set the thing on the ground and made it move around, going in a circle. Then after that, she focused some more energy on it, causing it to grow to the size of a small dog. Interesting. So this is my power, Seikyo thought. I wonder what else I can make. In her hands, she gathered more energy and made a black gemstone. Then she made a black fist. Then she made a sword. Fascinating. It appears she can take the negative emotions in the area and not just convert them into power, but form them as well, Futaba said. Although it appears her constructs require constant focus to keep their form, unlike Yami's, she can't absorb negative energy, so her power is limited by how much negative energy is around her. So she'd be a lot stronger in a more populated area, away from Yami who's also absorbing negative energy. Izuku was brought up. Yeah, ironically, Yami's greatest creation is nerfed by being around him, Futaba said. Is she strong? Yami asked. Oh yeah, plenty strong, Futaba confirmed. At max power, that is. Speaking of which, there is something I wanted to test. Her body structure seems similar to the hound, but without the brain weakness. I want to test her regeneration. Just tell me what happens when she gets injured, and I'll dash. Slice. Everyone stopped as they heard a slicing sound from the chamber, and looked down to see that Seikyo had cut off her hand with a construct sword. Immediately, dark energy began to pool into the wound, and her flash rapidly regrew, until half a minute later the hand was regrown. Or she could do that, Futaba said, slightly surprised by the girl's eagerness to dismember herself. Hey Yami, can she feel pain? Yami nodded. Well, that's concerning. Looks like you've got another doozy to take care of, boss. Futaba said. Izuku sighed. I expected as much. And speaking of doozies, is she Yami's kid? His sister? What's going on here? Futaba asked. Wait, if she's Yami's kid, and she was made with my candies, am I a mom? Amai gasped, as a look of pure shock took over her face. Huh. Yami hadn't really thought about it, but despite that making sense, it also felt really, really weird. Sister. She's a sister. Then so it shall be, and no more thought shall be given to this. Izuku said decisively. Last thing he needed was to be a grandfather at his age. The media would kill him. So what did you want us for? Ken asked as he and Nara stood in a testing field at the lab. Well, there were two new developments. Firstly, we found a way to shrink fractals. And second, Mr. Midoriya wanted us to design things that would increase your levels of power. Mai explained, as two scientists came up behind her, holding two boxes. Hence these new Omnitrix models. The scientists opened the boxes, and in them were two new Omnitrixes. These have a new function, the fusion feature. Mai picked up one of the Omnitrixes. Just press the secondary button, and you'll go to the fusion menu, activating the fusion fractal held within. Then you both select and transform. And when you transform, the two of you will fuse together to create an even more powerful transformation that combines both powers. Fuse. Both of them shouted out in shock and slight disgust. Why would I want to share a body with him? Nara scoffed. I think I'd rather fight someone without my transformation. Ken gagged. Oh, so if your options were fusing, or both of you getting killed by villains, you'd rather die? Mai asked. Both of them went quiet and made resigned expressions. Fine, I'll try it out. Nara huffed. But I won't like a second of it. Ken grumbled, crossing his arms as he pouted. Thank you both for your sacrifice, Mai said half sarcastically. Now let's get these things on you. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. Ken and Nara inspected the new Omnitrixes. They looked the same for the most part. The only difference being the second button. Alright, now remember there are a couple of drawbacks with this. Mai said. First, you can only use these features when you two are within a half-a-mile radius of each other. Any further, and you'll be too far to fuse. And you can only use a fusion transformation for 10 minutes a day, meaning you get one shot. What the hell is this? Ken shouted. On his Omnitrix, he noticed a new silhouette. The one for Ghost Freak. Right? Given the situations, you've been in it. We thought it was necessary to at least have that transformation available. Mai explained, wincing slightly at Ken's enraged expression. You remember what happened on Monstra, right? How could he forget? That monster had completely overpowered him and everyone else. Maybe if he'd used Ghost Freak, he could have made a difference. Grrrr, Ken growled. He hated the idea, but it wasn't wrong. He quickly moved to a different silhouette. Let's just get this over with already. Let's just go with Heat Blast and whatever you're going to pick. Alright, let's try Wildvine. Nara said as she selected that transformation. Fire and plants don't mix, genius. Ken pointed out. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm curious what this transformation will be like. Nara said as she rolled her eyes. Now let's just do this already. Right? Ken said. They both slammed down on the dials, but instead of transforming immediately, their Omnitrixes just glowed blue, before suddenly they were both forced towards each other, the Omnitrix pulling their bodies together, and once they touched, they were engulfed in a blue glow. When the glow subsided, in the two kids' place was one new transformation. It was a humanoid plant creature with a mostly green body, with some black parts on their sides and neck. On their head was a red and yellow plant that looked kind of like fire, and on their arms were some red growths. Lastly, their feet seemed to be roots. The new creature looked over its body, and two voices came out of its mouth. This feels so weird. Am I Ken? Nara? I guess I'm both. Okay, so human intelligence didn't affect the mind merging, Mai said as she wrote something down on her notepad. Alright, let's get started. We only have so much time to remember. Please begin testing your abilities. Alright, now how do I dash? As the fusion tried to figure out what to do, suddenly holes opened up in their hands, and a green gas started pouring out of them rapidly. Okay, what is this? Mai sniffed the air, and immediately her nose scrunched. That's methane. It's very dash. Whoosh. Suddenly the creature shot off a spark, and all the methane exploded, causing everything around them to burst into flames, including the new creature themselves. I'm fired. I'm on fire, the creatures said as they ran out of the flames and started trying to put themselves out by running around in a panic. Flammable. My side. This is gonna take a while. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Inu's turn to stand in the field. That's right, Mai said, as 3 scientists walked up behind her, holding some strange-looking chokers. Since you all get more powerful the closer you guys are, we thought about giving you the same kind of treatment Ken and Nara got, but using the fusion fractal. I see. Since we get more powerful the closer we get, by sharing a body we'd get even stronger. G brought up. Interesting. That's not all. Fusing naturally makes things stronger, so combined with your quirk could lead to exponential power growth. Mai said. So we get a crap ton stronger, is what you're saying? Yaba said, smirking as she took the choker. I like the sound of that. Come on girls, let's fuse. Okay. Inu was unsure of this whole fusing thing, but more power couldn't hurt. As all of them put on the chokers, Mai finished explaining. The collars are designed to defuse you after 10 minutes, and you won't be able to fuse more than once a day. So make sure to use this only if necessary. Got it, Doc? Yaba said as they all finished putting on the chokers. So how do we turn it on? All of you just need to touch the center of the choker at the same time. You do have to be within a half-a-mile radius, but that shouldn't be a problem for all of you. Right, Yaba said, as she and the others touched the choker at the same time. The chokers glowed blue, and all 3 of them were dragged towards each other, before erupting into a massive blue light. When the light died down, instead of 3 girls, there was 1. Rather than a child, though, the girl looked to be in her teens, around the same age as Izuku. Fortunately, the fusion fused their clothes together as well, meaning that despite the sudden growth, they weren't naked. Since all the girls shared the same appearance, the new fusion looked pretty much like a grown-up version of any of them, with G's tail. So this fusion? The new girl said as she looked down at her new body. Why am I older? Mai shrugged. Gonna need to research that later. Squoop. Suddenly a beam of light came down into the field, and Protoman appeared. Doctor, sorry for the delay, but I'm finally here. Perfect timing, Proto. You can test the power of this new fusion here. Mai said. What do you say, girls? Well, first I say I need a name. The fusion said. How about Cerberus? Yeah, that works. As for a fight, sure. I'd love to test out this new body. Protoman sighed. Of course it was a fight. All right, come at me when you're ready. Alrighty then. Let's see how this works. Cerberus said, before shooting out just a massive wave of blue fire from her mouth, heading right at Protoman. Protoman quickly put up his shield, protecting him from direct exposure to the flames. If I keep standing here, I'm going to shit down from overheating. Squoop. Protoman turned into a beam and appeared behind Cerberus, immediately blocking a punch from her that sent him skidding backward. Cerberus rushed forward with incredible speed and grabbed the side of his shield, moving it to the side so she could punch him, only to get punched in the face by Protoman and sent flying back. She flipped in the air, landing on her feet, before having to put up her arms to block the energy shots that Protoman was sending her way. The shots did minimal damage, creating small cuts and burns that healed the instant they formed. This fusion stuff is incredible. Cerberus charged forward through the energy shots and grabbed the shield again. This time she lifted it upwards, forcing Protoman to let go of it, or else he'd have been lifted up as well. She threw the shield to the side, all the while taking tons of point-blank energy shots to the face. Whoosh! Cerberus breathed out a jet of blue flames at Protoman, who rolled to the side to avoid it. Protoman started running away from Cerberus while charging his cannon. Cerberus ran after him, quickly catching up to him and attempting to punch him, only for him to dodge each one. But she managed to land a punch at his back, sending him flying forward on his face. Huh! Cerberus jumped high into the air before hurtling down towards the fallen Protoman, with her fist cocked back, ready to cause some serious damage, until Protoman rolled and shot a fully charged shot right at Cerberus. Aha! Cerberus cried out in pain as she was launched back by the force of the shot. She landed flat on her back, and the shot made a massive wound in her torso and burns all over her body. But by the time she'd hit the ground, she was already healed. All right, that's enough, Mai said as Cerberus got back up. I think it's clear to say that you've gotten a whole lot stronger. So there's no need to risk damaging Protoman any further. All right, Cerberus sighed, before looking back down at her body. This power really is incredible. If only we'd had it back when we fought Frisia. We'd have been able to put up a real fight. Well, that's the whole reason we've started making these, May explained. Hopefully with this, we won't have to worry about you being in danger ever again. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX and Sai were all standing in the lab. Only makes sense, considering we're the ones who are supposed to be fighting, Sai said. All right, let's make this quick, Mai said, as 4 scientists stood behind her, holding various things. Sorry first. Your main strength is your incredible speed. So we'll give you this choker that will triple your speed outright. Ah, sweet. Sori grinned ear to ear as she took the choker. Blue eat your heart out. Don't let him hear you say that. Mai sighed, knowing exactly what would happen if these two ever met. A fight. They would fight and nearly kill each other. Anyway, Sai, your main issue is your energy reserves running out whenever you use your portals too much. Which is why we're giving you this special glove that will replenish your energy when you activate it. Thank you. I'll use it well. Sai said as she accepted the glove. Tokoshi, your main issue is your mobility. Hence we've given you this cufflink, containing a fractal with Kurogiri's power. Sai said, remember to use it carefully. Wait, really? That's awesome, I mean. Thank you, my lady. I will use it well. Tokoshi said, blushing a bit after losing character. Lastly, Giza, your main issue is power. So we're giving you this. A ring that will enhance your body. Nothing too grand, but for someone of your skill it should suffice. Mai said, thank you, Giza said as he took the ring. Also, we have some more equipment we'd like you to deliver, Mai said. I really need to learn how to handle my money. MT Lady sighed as she laid down on her couch, lazily eating chips. After she helped with Starro, Izuku had been kind enough to pay off the debts she had and give her a generous sum of money, which she used up. You might wonder how she could spend all that money in such a short amount of time. And that's something MT Lady herself would really like to know. After a few drunk nights out with Kimui and Death Arms, and suddenly all gone. Something tells me that won't happen for quite some time, said Giza as he suddenly loomed over her on the left side of her couch. Gah! MT Lady choked on a chip, in alarm, and quickly sat up. Ack! Shit, man, don't scare me like that. Fuck! How did you get in here? I have a gift for you, Giza said, ignoring her question. He threw a pair of horns at her, similar to the horns she used for her hero costume. These are special horns, made with Midoriya technology. It'll basically allow you to use a second quirk that will give you full control over your body, including things that would normally be involuntary or uncontrollable, such as the fact that your growth can only go to max size. Wait, so I can still grow in smaller places? MT Lady said, looking at the horns in awe. Sweet. You may also use it in other ways, but be careful, Giza warned. You don't know what side effects may occur. And don't use it for more than 10 minutes a day. What happens if I use it for more than 10 minutes a day? MT Lady asked. MT Lady looked up and spoke to Giza, only to find that he was gone. Vanished without a trace. MT Lady sighed and laid back down. Fucking ninjas, man. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX In actuality, he was deep in thought, thinking about his family situation. "I apologize for interrupting. Number one hero," said a voice from behind him. Endeavor immediately turned around and aimed his fist at the source of the voice, only to find it was Giza. "Oh, it's you. What does Midoriya want from me now?" "Nothing. He simply wishes to help your efforts in protecting the public," Giza said as he took out a gauntlet from behind his back. "Here, this will help you. It contains a special kind of technology that will vastly increase your resistance to heat, although not make you outright immune to it. Also, don't use it for more than 10 minutes a day." "What happens if I do?" Endeavor asked. Giza shrugged. "No one can know. Maybe something good. Probably something horrible. Best not to test it." Endeavor looked at the gauntlet. "What kind of technology are you people making?" He looked back up, only to find Giza gone. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX. "It's been a long time since we've talked," Nizu said as he and Giza sat down in his office, with some nice tea and snacks. "How are the turtles?" "They are growing up fine," Giza said. "How are your students?" "They're growing up fine." Nizu chuckled. "I hope Midoriya has been treating you well. He's been keeping me busy, But not overly so, Giza said, sipping his tea. Speaking of which, I have something to give you. It should already be delivered to your special armory. It's special equipment for your staff and students. They should prove useful. Wonderful. Niza laughed. I was wondering when Midoriya would share his things. Aside from the fruit he gave us, he's still afraid of what technology can do. Rightfully so, Giza said. He's only allowing this because he's more afraid of his enemies now. I understand. I hope the poor boy can truly take a break this time, Nizu said. The last thing we need is him going insane and destroying the world. Giza sighed. The worst part about that sentence is that it is entirely plausible. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to support the writer. And don't forget to like, sub, and leave a comment. Till next time.